Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody back. We had previously called a meeting to order for the open session at 5:15 for the purpose of going into executive session, and I can report back to you that as a result of the executive session that we have reached final agreement with the Harwich Permanent Fires Association for a labor contract. It was one of the last things that Tony was able to produce for us, and we have come to an agreement with the fire chief, David LeBlanc, on his new contract. And with that, I'd like to have you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you for that. Right, I'm going to ask for the courtesy of moving some agenda items around in deference to one of our staff that has a problem. But I will say that under staff comments and announcements that we do have a listening session between Mark Kelleher and Anita Doucette and the general public on February 10th, 2026 at Town Hall. It's going to be between 9:30 and 10:30 a.m. on February 10th. So I'm going to ask to move up the discussion relative to the assessing endeavor. That would be you guys.
On the agenda, Mr. Chair, that is located where?
That's a good
New
question.
business, number C.
Is that new business C?
Yes.
Thank you for the public.
Okay. We asked to put this on here for two reasons. It's not just to get a status report, because, as you know, there's been a lot of changes in the administration, in the select board and everything, and we know that you've done work, so we wanted to be updated about what the work was, and then after we get to that point, we can talk to you about where we're at as a town in order to complete your work. So you're on for the start part of this.
You did all receive the report in your package, and I'm sure everyone read it from cover to cover.
I didn't read the cover.
So this basically started in 2022. Unfortunately, at that time, I was in the office by myself for a couple years, so it did have a slow start. It did take us a while. We have finally obtained a title abstractor who's doing the work now. Today, minutes before we walked up here, we received our first title report, so we haven't had the opportunity to read it or come to any conclusions. But we do have the title abstractor now, and we're submitting pieces to them as we go. So the first one we submitted, it took about 3 weeks to get an answer back.
Before we do that, so for Mr. Sett and Mr. Kelleher to be aware, this all came from actually an article that was proposed by the select board to town meeting, and it was unanimously passed. It was Article 39 that offered money to start looking at and researching some of these properties. Earlier this year, we came to you with a plan to get rid of miscellaneous parcels. If you remember that, because the Department of Revenue does not allow a town to carry miscellaneous parcels on their database. So we did that, and we got rid of 132 miscellaneous parcels. And again, we had to set some money aside in the overlay account in case anyone comes out of the woodwork, 5 years from now. But this was something that the town wanted to have done, and we had wanted to have done. And with Carly, when she was in the office alone, she couldn't get it done. We had a consultant at one point. Last year, the administration decided not to agree to continue that consultant. So Carly and her staff, and we have two of them here tonight, Madison Gribben and Dan Seidel from our staff who were here with Carly tonight. They have just started doing these things. And Carly's going to show you some of the work she has been doing and how much remains to continue. The bottom line, as she goes through and you read the report, there's a lot left to be done. We've taken care of the miscellaneous parcels, but there are a substantial number of unknown owners, unknown properties in town. Would you please tell them what we have brought back to the tax assessors' rolls and how much money we've brought in?
So since we started, we've put back on, in value, $3.3 million in value back onto the tax rolls. Of that, $439,000 was town-owned property, so it's not going to bring in additional tax revenue.
So as we go through this process, there's a lot left to be done. There are a number of unknown owners that we still need to research. Without having consultants, which was part of the original Article 39, we no longer have the consultant. We are relying on a title abstractor. That title abstractor, frankly, took 6 months to secure through our legal counsel. Now that we have it, these individual parcels that Carly and her staff are working on are required to go back to a title abstractor to find out who was the last legal owner of these properties, so that we can finally put them back on the tax rolls to the estate of, if necessary, that last known owner. And how many parcels do we have left that we need to?
It's about 516 acres left. We've identified 65 acres, and we have about 516 acres left of unidentified.
And there is a timetable to get that done. How long it's going to take, can't tell you. Because once they start doing their initial work and send it over to title abstractor, the title abstractor has to put everything together. And if you're familiar with the process, they're researching, going back as far as they can, to send a report back here. Then the staff takes it and will identify it on the map. We didn't have GIS till a couple of years ago. Having the GIS has helped substantially. And I would offer to any of the select board members, and anyone in town actually if necessary, to visit the assessor's office to look in the back conference room, the huge map that's on the wall. And that will show you every parcel basically in town and the work that these folks have been doing to get that. And at this point, where we fully staffed, we have an office that's fully staffed, adequately staffed by very, very good professionals. We can get the work done. Could we use a consultant? Sure. We understand that the administration made the decision not to rehire a consultant, but we still need those funds for title abstracting. They cannot continue to do the work of the town, working with the finance director, getting tax bases ready, getting tax bills out, and do the work of a consultant as well. Without a title abstractor, we will never clean this up. We've done what DOR requested. We got rid of the miscellaneous parcels. Now the job is to clean the database to get rid of as many owners unknown parcels as we can. Anything else you want to add?
No, we just tried our best to clean it up as best we could because we didn't want to pay a title abstractor to read 132 deeds. We wanted to get the best bang for our buck, so we cleaned it up as much as we could before we handed it over.
Don't be fearful. We didn't have you here to say you weren't doing it quick enough. This is a good beginning of the conversation because there's a lot of moving parts around this now that you've gotten this far. Mr. Parkowski brought up that part of, and he was correct, that part of the discussion at that town meeting was what we were going to do with the properties. And I remember it the same way he did, that we were promising, there wasn't supposed to be a new windfall for the development industry to consume them. So that's one moving part. Another one is we have been using, I don't want to get too arcane with people, but we have been supporting the budget with some overlay money. And to the extent that that was being repurposed to do something that you're doing and it wasn't available to us, that was going to punch a hole in our budget processes, particularly in fiscal 27. So in a way, it's fortuitous that you're not at the point everything's happened and we're good to go because we want to be able to analyze where that money's going to come from and what the impact on the fiscal year budget's going to be. So this is a good place to be in a certain way that we can't go any further.
Well,
I'll defer to Jen, but I'm assuming that was...
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really up to speed on all of this. I haven't had conversations.
But we have been taking in money in the budget from overlay each year.
Correct, absolutely.
So we were a little concerned that was going to stop and it was going to be diverted.
no, the only
No.
problem this year was because of the miscellaneous parcels, that we needed some additional funds in the overlay to cover those properties, that if an owner comes out of the woodwork, that those funds are there, because something is being taken, and there's no longer miscellaneous parcels. And we need a short boost to the overlay, but as you know, every year, the Board of Assessors meets to give back to the town, to the general budget, any overlay surplus that we have. We're just going through our abatement season right now. We've just gotten a number of applications in for people filing their abatements, and we have that overlay not only takes care of the tax credits that are done, and they're substantial, we now have 9 of them in the community, but it additionally covers all of the abatements that we, as a Board of Assessors, may offer. So we will continue to give anything surplus that is in overlay back to the town, but what we believe is that the work that's being done by this team, and now with the title abstractor, continues to be done and should be finished.
My point was that we need to be in conversation with each
Absolutely.
other, because that was a precursor to the budget process, that we were assuming certain amounts, and that may not be a good assumption anymore. So
Correct.
we needed to have this discussion so that we're both on the same page.
Well, and frankly, Mr. Chairman, that we've got a new finance director. She's been overwhelmed. She submitted a wonderful financial breakdown of the town, to you a month or so ago. She's been working diligently. She hasn't had time to sit with our department and go over all the things that we've been doing. We've been doing a lot. And once she gets settled, we're happy to have her come in and discuss with us, but she's got other priorities on her plate at the moment.
Couldn't be said any better. Again, that's why you're here. And before I open this up, I just want to ask you one overarching question, because
Sure.
I'm sure it's on some people's mind. In the meantime, as these properties reside in the ether, as owners unknown, are they being taxed?
No, that's the problem. We're trying to get them on so that we can establish them a tax bill.
Okay.
One of the factors that Carly and her team have been doing, they've been working very, very closely with Dave Callahan and the Real Estate and Open Space Committee. They're looking for properties. The title report that came in today, literally, as I went downstairs to get Carly and the team to come up, we just got a title report where no one has looked at it yet. My gut is it's going to say it's owners unknown. So, and it's a prime piece of land that people have been talking about, and we want to know what that is so that it can go back on the tax rolls for whatever purpose. And Real Estate and Open Space has their eyes on some of these parcels, but we can't clear them until this title work has been done, and we can say it is no longer owners unknown, it goes to the estate of so-and-so.
And the only reason I bring it up is because we're not trying to assign blame. I want everybody to understand that the scenario is not out there at the moment where somebody steps forward and says, hey, that's mine. And we say, great, you have a $190,000 tax bill that you can clear up first before you can take the property with you. That discussion can't happen because we have not been taxing them, because we need to do other things first.
Right, the 65 acres that we have located, we have put on the tax rolls. So those have tax bills now.
We had a situation this year that there was a very, very large parcel. I want to get into the specifics of it. A very large parcel in town. And it was putting a number of pieces together, and the owner came forward, and they wanted it back on the tax rolls. Well, there were substantial back taxes that had to be paid. And they were paid. And so what this is doing is benefiting the community by putting as many of these parcels as we can back on the tax rolls. And some of it's town land that we didn't know was town land. Real Estate and Open Space could potentially have a use. You, as a select board, might find a use for some of those parcels. But the bottom line is, this is the first time in my 20-plus years in the Board of Assessors that we've been able and are able to clean up this database.
Again, that's all well and good, but I want the public to understand this too. If they're thinking in their minds that the scenario is, okay, but in order for you to gain access to that land, you're going to have to pony up X number of thousands of dollars that have accrued in the past with interest, that's not happening until we do this stuff. So
Correct.
that's all I care about with the public. So I'm going to start with any questions.
No, I think, what was covered makes sense, and, I look forward to that work continuing so we can identify whatever is identifiable. So appreciate that.
And Mr. Chairman, we're happy to come back at any time to do a report of where they're at.
And
now-
again, that's why you're here, because
Oh,
it
sure.
occurred to me that nobody's had this discussion up until this
We'll
point.
be happy to come in quarterly if that's what you want, to give you an update. And now that we've got a title abstractor on board, this work is going to be much, much easier for the staff.
And keep Jen in the loop because there are
Also,
implications.
when she's ready, she's got an open invitation to come in, and we will be happy to have an entire day's conversation with her about what's going on.
I just have one question. If You can't find any owners unknown. Does the town take ownership of the land?
No, so it'll get assessed to owners unknown, and then that generates the tax bill, and then once the taxes, the back taxes are, the town will take it for tax taking.
That's where I
And
was
it will
going.
go to owners unknown
That's-
first.
That's what I was
Yeah.
going. Okay, thank you very much for
So
answering.
that's the whole idea, is eventually, we will clean it all up.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for all you're doing.
thank you.
Thank the staff.
Thank you for the work, too. What's the dollar amount of all your work? What is that you've recovered in taxes up to this
I
point?
want to say roughly about $2 million. The first year was 1.3 million, and I know the second year was in the 900,000s. I can't think of the third year off the top of my head.
And that's assessed value.
No, that's taxes.
Oh, taxes, actually.
So, yeah, we put 3.3 million back in value, but we recouped about $1 million in taxes the first year.
Excellent. What is your want tonight? You just want to continue with funds for the title examiner? Is that-
Yeah, now we're going forward, we want to keep going with the title abstractor.
Do you
Now that
need
we've
a-
cleaned it all up, and we have the money in the purchase order for the Article 39, so we're going to start utilizing that account
Okay.
to pay the title
So you
abstractor.
have the money on hand that you
Correct.
can use?
Correct.
Final thing, when I look through your, the graphs, Belmont Gardens, are all these little, what is that?
Buy a suit, get a property.
Yeah, pretty much. They were raffled off or given away, but the ownership got all messed up at some point during the mapping. So that was a huge chunk that everybody was like, oh, there's this many acres unidentified. When we went through it, that wasn't the case. It was the map was messed up. So we fixed that so that way it didn't look like more acres were missing.
So what we have in the packet, you've cleaned up.
Yeah, we cleaned that
Seemed
whole
to be
area.
a lot of repeat numbers, but it looked like a cemetery type of plot, you know?
Yeah,
all these-
it's mostly owned by Town of Harwich Conservation.
Okay.
I wasn't joking. I mean, there was a haberdashery that said if you buy something, we'll give you, remember, land was dirt cheap, and that's exactly what it was. It was a small parcel of land that was substandard, that was all yours if you only buy a suit from us.
Yes,
But excellent work, that type of revenue,
thank you.
so thank you.
Thank you. Mark, you're in plot 66, A2-15/16. That's yours.
If he pays the taxes.
If you pay the back tax.
Make sure it's a double one.
So, well, you're next to Pete. So, yeah, thank you both for being here. Great work. I was away at a meeting where I believe something came up with Article 39. So I'm just going to ask for my own knowledge. The article was $500,000, if I'm not mistaken. The initial article, 500,000. Do you know the balance left in that article? How much have you consumed?
We paid the consultant, I believe it's around 460. It's mid-fours, I can tell you that.
Is where we're at now.
Yeah,
Right around there.
yep.
Correct.
And the ask tonight is to have access to the balance in its entirety to move forward with the work that Article 39 in town meeting had voted in the positive for. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
That's all I have.
And I want, if I can, Mr. Chairman, Carly, to show some of the work that she's doing and how individualized it is. These are all individual parcels. And these are the parcels that she's studying, identifying, sending over to the title abstractor to try to get an understanding of ownership. And when all else fails, and it's gone to a title abstractor, where when we came up with Article 39, which actually was the Select Board that came up with the Article 39, and we agreed to it, is that we got to get to the bottom of this stuff. And Carly could not do it alone. She was by herself. Now we're fully staffed. We had a consultant who worked on it for about a year and a half. The consultant was not continued. So now it is Carly and her staff and the title abstractor. And I think that's what's necessary, is if she can utilize that title abstractor, the funds will come from that Article 39. And to be honest with you, when the work is done, and hopefully in the next year to 2 years that will be done, those funds obviously come back to the town.
And not to trivialize any of your efforts, but that's why you're here, because the money is available, and I don't believe we swept anything from those articles, although we are looking at things that were super high priorities 3, 4, 5 years ago, which makes one question about how high the priority remains. But that money's still there. So nobody's telling you can't access that. That wasn't the purpose of tonight. It was like, you can still spend up to that article amount. If you need more, you have to discuss that with us. But you and the finance director just need to be hand in hand about where you're at and what the implications financially are to the town.
Absolutely. And I firmly believe that the funds that have been appropriated will be utilized, and God willing, we will have some of those funds left to turn back to the town. But we need to, we've just literally started. This is the first report from the abstractor that we're getting tonight. And no problem. When you're available, we'll be happy to do a full tutorial of what's going on, show you the work that's being done. And again, if we can get this done in a year, it would be marvelous.
It is somewhat amusing that everybody comes in and thinks it's because we want to punish you somehow. You've done great work.
Not at all. We're happy
it's
to give you a
fine.
report. And tell us when you want us back. Next
I
quarter?
think, I think quarterly is probably a good idea, but in the meantime, she has an office right across the hall. So,
We don't go near her office right now. She's very busy. When she raises the white flag and says, "Okay, come see me," we'll most certainly have
he is
that.
amazing. So we
We're happy to
already
have
know
her.
that.
Mr. Chair, if I just could, is there anything that this board can do to support your efforts? I know we don't get into it day to day with you all, but I mean, is there anything that we can do to support the efforts that you all, I mean, this is tax money. This is money going in.
No, I think you guys already do a great job. You guys send people to our office when they have an issue, or if there's, something they're questioning, you guys send them right to us, and they give us another piece of the puzzle. So I think you guys, just the word of mouth of what we're doing brings people into the office.
Great, thank you.
And there are, again, we got rid of a lot of miscellaneous parcels. And again, it was a good discussion, with the board to get rid of those. And really, the question is now that she's got the abstract, that took 6 months, to be honest with you. And with everything in flux in the town, the director wanted to work it through herself. We did not have a finance director, we were an interim town administrator, no assistant town administrator. And she hung in there, she got that title abstractor through town council. Now that she has it, we pretty much have everything that we need.
Right. Should be smooth sailing from here on out.
Great, then we're all happy. Okay, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for moving the
Great.
meeting.
Michael. Sure. Didn't see you back there. Hello.
It was smooth sailing.
Chair, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Through you, Chair, to the Finance Director, can you give us the number that is left as a tax liability with accruing interest for owners unknown? What's left on books?
Off the top of my head, I cannot.
Okay. That'd be a great number to bring back. We were doing that probably on a monthly basis as this started, and I believe the last time we looked at that, it was roughly $3 million, still as a tax liability with accruing interest. And then through you to the Board of Assessors, the process once we get it back on the tax rolls, taking that by tax title. Can you explain that process? Because it's not that easy.
It's not easy, and it's not a process that we as the board do. That goes across the hall to the tax collector. And that is where, at some point, that discussion with the finance director and the executive branch of the select board will have to get involved. In the past, it's been slower. We can set everything up. We can set the rules up for, here you go, here's what we need for those to be taken. But we, as the assessing office, do not actually take those parcels.
And as you know, as you sat here, one property took almost forever to do a taking on because you have to associate the money against the fair market value of the property so that it's there. If an owner shows up to assert ownership, they don't get the property, they get what the fair market value is. So every property has to be done individually.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can, to the speaker, if, we get to the point where we're cleaning this up, cleaning this database up, we have identified these properties, then we can assist in any way. And we may need appraisal money, to appraise those properties so we know exactly what we're facing. The bottom line is when the miscellaneous parcels were done away with this year, we had to set aside funds. And we had to set aside funds in the overlay to do it. And the previous acting finance director, Eric, had said, we're going to put additional funds into the budget this year to compensate for that potential. And I think it was $200,000 or $250,000 additional that was going into overlay.
I think that's right.
And we will be coming back again to give back what we have in surplus. But we want to make sure there's money there so we don't have to come frantically back to the finance committee.
And I think, to the Chair,
Go ahead.
you were very involved, and that brings up where I'm going to go next. Probably not on this conversation, but the warrant. Jeff Handler was involved in this last year. None of the other board members were involved in this. You know exactly exactly what property, it's the Judah Eldridge property, and how much money we had to put away. And then the argument that we had with real estate and open space based on CPC funds and the legality of that, which is why we, to piggyback on Article 39, two different boards voted two different town meetings outside of Article 39 to sell 3 lots on Queen Anne Road. And I understand now that it's been at least proposed. I haven't seen any conversation with the full board. I know Mr. Pekarsky asked a question, probably based on a phone call I made to him, of taking that land for land money, as we called it, sale of 3 lots on Queen Anne Road for $3 million, roughly. I think it's $3,010,000. But now, if what we expressly told, and Chair, stop me if you want, and I can do it under the conversation about the warrant. But we expressly did that, you, myself, and 2 other mixed boards, to give them the money to actually be able to do this outside of the tool money in Article 39. So we tucked away $3 million. And I would urge the board, and I have plenty of notes on that, to have the conversation about, and I'm not sure whose idea it was, because I can't find any meeting where this was actually discussed and the new board members were brought up to speed. But now we're talking about taking money to fix a roof, when we expressly told town meeting, 2 town meetings,
We wouldn't do that.
that we wouldn't do that. So why we would even consider taking that money, and why any of you would consider ignoring 2 town meetings and real estate open space, who, Don, you remember, felt extremely rejected by us for 10 years because we did nothing for this project. So the whole town embraced it, and that was a unanimous vote, 2 town meetings to sell that land, to be able to do what we're talking about here. And Don, I was on the board with you and Select Board Handler and Pete, when we pulled $1.4 million out of that to save the town from a lawsuit and purchase a lot on the beach without having the time to go back before town meeting and get approved. So the tool and the mechanism works. So to take that now and spend it on a roof, instead of carefully managing capital projects and taking the money, whether you got to take it out of, the $6 million or so that we put away in stabilization, but that money, and town meetings will, and I know the conversation happened to bring that back to town meeting and let them vote again. So if the message is, you vote at a town meeting, we'll bring it back next year, and we'll take it away, so your debate meant nothing. And I would urge the board to really consider if that's the position you want to take.
And again, nobody's trying to do that. That's why we're here, because there's a lot of new people involved in all of this, and we have to discuss where the money is going to come from in escrow to do some of this stuff, and that probably is one of the places. I don't think Jen even knew that existed, so,
Yeah.
fine, yeah.
Well, I hope you consider at least having that conversation where public can weigh in.
Yeah, sure.
Instead of just bringing it before in a warrant, where it's a semi-done deal, and then a debate on town meeting floor that really shouldn't happen. Tonight, just for clarification, Don, you made a couple of comments.
Are you done with us?
I'm done. Well, through the chair, you got to ask through the chair.
Yeah, we're done with that.
Mr. Chairman, are we done with us?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You mentioned the Board of Assessors being here to give you an update, but they said that they were here to tell you that they need the money. When did the wheels come off? When did we stop giving the money, or did we not?
That's what I was trying to get to the bottom of. It seemed to me that nobody was having a discussion at all. We went through 2 acting contractors, basically, 2 different acting town administrators, and that discussions just fell off the radar screen. That's why they're in here.
Excellent. Please, agenda, if you don't want to talk about it tonight at length, but please agenda at least a conversation where the board can vote, and not just on a warrant article that's proposing taking that money that we shouldn't be touching.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just remember, and you know this, that the article is somewhat independent of source, so we'd have to have the discussion of not just the article, but the source of the money, and I have a feeling that's where you want to go with it.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay.
Chairman, there's a hand online, land shoveling.
Where is she?
Hollywood Squares, top left.
Yeah. Hello, Elaine.
Yes, thank you for taking my, recognizing my hand. Sorry, I have a...
You can thank Mr. Westack.
I just wanted to follow up a little bit on what Mr. McCaskill was just saying. As a member of Real Estate Open Space, and I'm not speaking for them right now, just speaking for myself, and having been on the committee, still am, and was on the committee when all these transactions took place. And it would really be very upsetting and frustrating if any of the money that was realized from the sale of those properties was used for something other than purchasing other land that we've all been looking at for several years. And as you're all well aware, the prices of property have gone way up recently. So a great deal of money needs to be used to purchase even several. So I would hope that none of that money, that the revenue that came from the sale of those properties, was used for anything other than the purchase of properties. Thank you for taking my call.
I reiterate to everybody, that's why we're here, so that we can have this discussion, so that all the parties remember what it was we promised to do and where the funding sources can come from. We haven't spent a nickel other than for what its purpose was, but I'm pretty sure that Mr. Keller has some questions about the capital plan. We haven't even approved that yet. We haven't approved anything yet on the articles. We haven't gotten to the point of how we're going to fund any of this stuff. That discussion will follow, and I assume that Mr. McCaskill will show up for that discussion too, so that we can, stay in the loop about what we promised and when we promised it. Because we have a horrible tendency to have amnesia about certain things. So with that, again, this was not the end of session. It's like, where are you up to, and where are we up to, and where are we going from here? And where are the funding sources from it? So that's it. Okay, appreciate it. Now we can go back to the weekly briefing, which you're going to give us.
Weekly briefing. This week, Robert Hour is working on Hardings Lane. He's installing sewer stubs on Pleasant Bay Road, and he's working on the pump station on Chestnut Street. And that's it for this week. Thank you.
All righty. Public comments, announcements.
Good evening. Sally Urbano, West Harwich. I'm going to read it again. I'm here tonight to plead for your intervention in the following situation. Please use any and all avenues open to you. I'm going to try and go quickly, but I have to lay a little bit of foundation. But it's okay, because if I run out of my 3 minutes, Lou's given me his.
That's all well and good, but
You can have 6.
and that's
Great. All right.
Sally, and that's all well and good, but this is not structured and has not for the last couple of years to actually come to
You've been very good about it.
an interchange with people, so you can say what you're saying.
Thank you. You've been
not
very
gonna be
good
able to
about it.
comment.
All right, so the background. The West Harwich District of Critical Planning Concern, known as Captain's Row, was crafted over many years. It was a complete plan based on historic preservation, small business opportunities, and attention to traffic and impacts to the Herring River. It was a step process regarding multiple town boards, Charlene Greenhow, our planner, the Select Board, Mr. Howell was there then, and the late Mr. Ford, the county boards, the county commissions, the Cape Cod Commission, several state entities, and it was finalized at town meeting vote. Now my pleas. I've noticed misunderstanding among many, including our own boards, and for 1 year, I have been asking the town planner to set up an informational. So my 1-year anniversary for doing this is tomorrow, February 10th, 2025. The Cape Cod Commission, through Sarah Kodjoff, was very willing and suggested that it needs to be presented to the necessary boards in a joint meeting to include the Building Department, the Historic Commission, and the Planning Board. 1 full year of trying to get this accomplished, of waiting, of intermittent communications. At a recent planning board meeting, the town planner mentioned she's getting this set up, she's going to do it as a placeholder. There's no details, and it's going to be a few more months. Always an excuse, too busy, month after month. So I'm very concerned as to what's going on, and this is the first aspect I ask you to follow through. The second plea concerns the document entitled the West Harwich Special District Architectural Design Guidelines, and that's a mouthful, but it also is not the kind of design guidelines that will say to you, plant your shutters blue. It's not that at all. I take issue with the planner's comments that this is only guidelines. In fact, it is regulatory and the companion to the overlay district written bylaw. The bylaw requires the Harwich Planning Board to adopt the West Harwich Special District site and the architectural design guidelines. There is some legal authority, and the two, the written and the visual, inform each other and support both the developer and the involved commissions in their decisions. That document has languished since its first hearing was held March 8th, 2022. It'll soon be 4 years. Both Jonathan Eidman, who was our planner at the time, and Sarah Kordhoff explained its regulatory functions, but you can view it for yourself in the very initial planning meeting. So I urge you to see these design guidelines are completed in their proscribed progression. It needs only a planning board session for public attendance and hearing, and then the planning board signs it. The planning department seems to be saying to us now that these guidelines go back to the Cape Cod Commission because things may have changed, and there are 2 new members on the planning board. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I believe that is false. Not only that, but it is harmful to do this. As we wait for years for a voted bylaw to be fully implemented, our public trust erodes. Thank you so much, and do what you can.
We'll agenda it.
What? Oh, I printed out some for you.
I believe I have the same thing electronically.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Sutphin. You already gave 5 minutes of your 3.
Good evening, Matt Sutphin. A brief comment.
I do have.
I hope with this land that you may acquire by tax taking, or that some of it you may never find the owner, you might consider just giving to the Conservation Commission. I don't know if you're all aware of this Cape Cod Commission statistic, which is that Harwich is at the bottom of the barrel with land designated protected. By their calculus, we have only 22% of our town protected, which I found amazing because Dennis, Barnstable, Yarmouth have much greater protective lands, greater percentages, 28, 26, 30. So it's an odd situation, and I think it's one that we should carry in the back of our minds as we decide how we're going to dispose of land. My comment with my 2 minutes is I spent between 3 and 8 o'clock on Wednesday in Barnstable before the Cape Cod Commission, listening and getting a real education about how to go about getting the development you want. And it took me aback as somebody who years ago was concerned about rampant or over development on the Cape, or at least not development not planned. I was totally taken aback, and standing before you to suggest that you might want to consider holding on to your $300,000 that you give the Cape Cod Commission every year, and ask them just what is their remit, today. There was a remit years ago. I bought into it. And frankly, as I stand here, it's one I would vacate today if I had the ability to do so. I invite you to consider it. And the reason I'm saying it is I was one of several people in the room advocating that the Snow Inn not get the blessing of the Cape Cod Commission. You all may recall that the Snow Inn at one point in time wanted to tear down the building, tear down the Snow Inn, and reestablish it with 40 rooms. It then withdrew that plan several years ago and came back to the town with a plan for 80 rooms. It got the feeling that maybe that wasn't going to fly, so they withdrew it a year and a half ago, I believe, 2 years ago. And now they're back with 75 rooms. They've decided that they'll build down at the Coachman for help and reduce the footprint at the Snow Inn. In presenting it, they advocate all kinds of benefits, and of which there are benefits. And frankly, they had everybody but the dishwasher writing letters. The fact is, there are only 4, by my count, and neighbors that support this demolition the way it's presented. 75,000 square feet, almost the size of Shaw's. And there are plenty of supporters, plenty of people who want to be considered as neighbors. The neighbors produce a lot of benefit to the town tax-wise, and yet they're not considered. They're considered a problem. And the focus seems to be on what the result is, in this case, the benefits of an 80,000 square foot building, versus thinking about the consequences of building an 80,000 foot building. This is the way developers work. I build houses, build buildings. It's all about the result. It's not about who's going to deal with the problems that are left as a result of the result. So I invite you to consider that when this project comes back to town, that some hard questions get answered, because all of the requirements environmentally would be handled with a 40-room building. It's not that it has to be 75 to handle the problems. It's just smoke and mirrors. And I hope you'll see it as such. The neighbors deserve some recognition, which brings me to the thought.
That's a long 3 minutes, Matt.
Oh, well, I'm going to ask for 30 seconds. Brings me to the thought that if a petition comes forward to encourage you as a board to consider vacating your relationship with the Cape Cod Commission, because clearly it's a regional focus that's tied to Boston. It is not a focus that's tied to you and me here in Harwich. And I ask you to consider that should it come forward. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other public comment?
Thank you, John. Thank you, Select Board. My name is John Bonani. I'm an educator in the Monomoy District, also a resident at the 204. I am a poet. I edit the Cape Cod Poetry Review, which is the only peer-reviewed literary journal on Cape Cod. And I've ran open mics in the Creative Suite, which have been attended by Monomoy students, among other people. And I just want to address the current plan, which is about to be proposed.
You would be better suited to wait for the plan, because then we could respond to you, whereas we cannot now.
Well, I think I'll just make the statement and call it a day, if that's cool. I've had a long day.
We're up for that.
Okay, cool.
Where are you going after this?
So the plan as written displaces me from my studio, which is A04. I can reapply, and I realize that. But I think, having seen the plan, I just want to ensure that we all recognize human impact as we look at these kind of maps that come up. I get that the town needs space for its employees. We all welcome them to the building, which is vast in its square footage, and there are certainly other places that might not displace residents. The current people being displaced within this plan include one art educator at your high school who just secured $15,000 as a grant for Harwich students. One of those studios is myself. Another one is a fine artist with 3 degrees in art who has partook in some of the most competitive artist in residencies both in the country and internationally. It's the only 2 gay people in the building. It's a Black Haitian American who's trying to run a candle making craft. So the Creative Suite has offered studio space for those facing more socioeconomic difficulty. The rent is cheaper. And I totally get it, the town needs space. But I guess what I really take issue with within the proposal is that it lacks data related to people. The only data that I read about had to do with revenue, and much of that is highly questionable. In the proposal, there is not one mention of an actual person, an artist. There's no input from current residents. There's no quotes. There's no human impact. So I guess what I find troubling is that it is neglecting the most basic measure of just a quick survey. You know, survey the residents, see how they're feeling, use the data or pretend to use the data. I don't care. But as an educator, I need to be using data to inform my decision making, and I expect that elsewhere. So I guess even if we were to survey the artists at this point, we could then use that information for the next cycle of RFPs, if that makes sense. Finally, the new application for the 204 does not take a measure of demographics. You know, I work at the high school, and it looks a lot different than the 204. It is 30% children of color. So I think on the new lease, you know, there is a discrimination clause, which is great, but I think that most of that is useless if we don't collect demographics for the new RFP application review. I think it should also be mentioned who is reviewing these applications and qualifications, but I would formally request that revisions be made to the current proposal with adequate data in the form of demographic data related to protected classes in the new application, and if possible, survey data from residents which requests artist feedback on the proposal. And also to reconsider the allocation of space in order just to minimize human impact. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Bernadette?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'm Bernadette Waystack. I'm here wearing a couple of my hats tonight. I am a member of the Long Range Planning Committee, and I am also the chair of the Board of Trustees of Brooks Free Library. With the LPC, I've come tonight with the blessing of the rest of my committee to just make sure we use this venue to help the public know that we have already had one meeting where we had agended a portion of our evening for questions and answers on the draft comprehensive plan. Before we know it, we'll be at town meeting and talking about it there. So we have been trying for these 3.5 years now, come March, to make sure that we have done our due diligence in collecting information and getting feedback from the town and the committees, the community. They've been great about it. So we have one more session on Tuesday, March 3rd, and we are going to again put an agenda item on there for Q&A for anyone that wants to come and talk to us, ask questions, get clarifications on the draft. It occurred to us, because our normal meeting time is 5 o'clock, that might not be conducive for some of the working folks in town. So this meeting will be here in the Griffin Room on March 3rd at 6:30, in the hopes that it might be more conducive for some members who might like to come. Secondly, as chair of the Brooks Free Library, March 6th is Ginny Hewitt's last day. We are asking everyone to save the date for her retirement party. We will be honoring Ginny from 1 to 4 in the Thornton Room at Brooks Free Library on March 6th. And also, again, for anyone who can't make it that day, anytime that week, people have a chance to pop in and see Ginny and wish her well. We want to check her out one last time. There will be,
that was
but
poorly said.
I know. There'll be, this I just printed out today. I'm expecting a poster and more flyers soon, so we'll get those out and around to everybody, but thanks very much for your time.
I'm not supposed to respond, but Ginny is an extraordinary employee and an extraordinary individual, so it'll be hard to find somebody to fill her shoes. Love to be there that day to celebrate with her. Carolyn?
Oh, I thought you were talking about me. I just.
Well, we hadn't actually gotten to the point of doing this for staff, but you are here.
Oh, I'll wait for staff.
How about staff announcements?
Wow, what a good idea. This one's very quick. I just wanted to remind everyone that it is the community center's 26th birthday, and we are celebrating all week. Ducks started going out today, and they are going out very quickly. But more importantly, I just wanted to let you all know, and the community know, that at the pasta dinner, I've been practicing, that our new town administrator showed up and helped to serve for 168 people. And when I say he showed up to serve, he went right to work. So we are looking forward, and I just wanted to publicly thank him and let you know what a great choice. We're looking forward to working with him. Thank you.
Thanks. As long as we're at it, how about any other staff comments? All righty. So, let's get into the consent agenda then.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the Select Board meeting minutes from February 2nd, 2026.
Does anybody have any,
Second.
I was going to say, does anybody have any kind of aversion to doing all three of them?
No.
I do have a,
Oh,
sorry.
Okay.
Pete.
Well,
oh, I was saying no, if you do.
Yeah, I do, just on,
want to hold C back and then do A and B then?
no, yeah, can we just do the minutes right now? Because February 2nd minutes, there is
Okay.
a quick little error, I think, in the appointment of Mr. Siegel on the bikeways. Mr. Howell, I believe you abstained.
That's it.
So it wasn't it wasn't 500.
401.
401. That would be my
But I did
only-
not vote against it.
Correct, just an abstention. So I'd like that changed, and other than that, I didn't see any,
That's the motion?
Yeah.
To approve with that change?
yes.
Second with the change.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And all opposed, it's unanimous.
Chair, I move we approve the resignation of Justin White on the Council on Aging effective immediately.
Don't all second.
Second.
Who's going to do them both?
Are we going to do them both?
So you guys have no problems with doing those both?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay.
And C, I move
You
we
moved.
vote to accept a gift for the Saquotucket Harbor Sidewalk Project Design Contract Extension from Paul Manning in the amount of $50,000.
Second.
And that's an extraordinary gift. It actually puts together the sidewalk where we did not have the money to finish it without his really generous donation. So we all thank him for this.
I think it makes a total donation up to $300,000.
He's been amazing, and the sidewalks are in large measure because of him at that point. So, any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, do we send a letter to Mr. Manning to thank
I
him?
believe we should. And we do. It's already typed.
Oh, good. Didn't know.
Okay. So, no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Here you go.
Okay, the folks from Harrington Heap are here.
How you doing? Your hands are full. Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. Thank you very much.
Vikarski, pleasure.
Thanks.
I needed you, sir. Nice to meet you.
Or is this a condensed version?
Seen you before.
Hey, nice to meet you, Tom. How are you?
Nice to meet you. Good
I
to
won't
see
tell
you
you
again.
we've met.
I was going to say pull up another chair, but you pulled up another chair.
Well, thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Tom Harrington with Harrington Heap, and I'm here with Chris Brown, who our proposal has as your lead counsel, Ethan Dively, who our proposal has as your backup counsel. We're very pleased to be here, and thank you for the invitation. I'm going to try to give you some general information about the firm and who we are. Chris and Ethan are going to get more into the specifics of our proposal. Along the way, I'm sure you have your way of doing it, but if you want to interrupt us to ask a question, that's fine with us.
We're good at that, but you can go on.
Whatever works for you. So Harrington Heap in various iterations has been operating since 1988. We started out as Pickett and Miaris. Judy Pickett retired, and then it was Miaris and Harrington. Ray Miaris retired, and now it's Harrington Heap. So we're closing in on 40 years, but still enjoy what we're doing. Tom Harrington, I've been with the firm since 1989. I've been doing municipal work the whole time. Our firm is focused on municipal work, so we're not a firm that does municipal work and we do municipal work. 90% at least of our work is for cities and towns, and we represent cities and towns. We don't represent people appearing before cities and towns, particularly in any town that we serve. A little bit about how we like to do things. So we're looking for a team approach ultimately. And by that I mean we want to be part of your team. We want to work with you to help you make your decisions. We're not decision makers, but we want to help you make your decisions. And by that I mean there's lots of different ways to interact with town council. And again, we're comfortable doing it however you want to do it, but getting the email, what does, Chapter 48, Section 9 mean, is not necessarily, I think, the best way for us to interact. And we'll take it upon ourselves to call you if we get that email and say, okay, tell me what you want to do, because that's what we really want to know. We want to know what you want to do. And then we want to talk to you about how you can get there. Or if you can't get there, we'll have that discussion too. But, at this point, anyone can Google or ChatGPT a statute and find out what it means. That's easy. Everyone who's applied for this position can do that. We think what we bring is the conversation and helping you get to where you want to go as part of a team. We want to be kind of one of the tools in your toolbox. You'll understand as we approach this, we have kind of two ways of doing this. Chris will be your town expert, right? So he's lead counsel. It's his job to understand your town. The way we've designed our firm is we don't overburden our attorneys with dozens of towns, right? So this would be Chris's fourth or fifth town? Fifth, right? So, and that's about the max, because you can be town council in 8, 9, 10, 11 towns, but once you get past 5, you're not really serving that town. You're finding someone to serve that town. That's not the approach we want. That's not how we like to do our work. We want to work with you. We want to understand your town, because honestly, that's where the benefits accrue for us. We think we do a better job. We're more satisfied with that. We develop nicer relationships. We don't want to be kind of the nameless face at the end of the email, or you put a call in and you get the attorney of the day to call you back. When Harwich has an issue, we want you to be able to reach Chris Brown or Ethan Dively. And Chris Brown or Ethan Dively are going to understand not only the issue you're asking about, but the history of other issues that you've asked about, so that we can, again, develop a better answer for you and help you move in the direction that you'd like to move in. At the same time, we have a very deep bench. We have 13 lawyers, so with your town expert, they have the ability to bring in your subject matter expert. So if it's a procurement question, a town meeting question, an open meeting law question, a public records, whatever it is, we have someone on staff who can help answer that. That's our model. And we hope it appeals to you. We do training programs. We do those for free. We do those in kind of two different ways. And so I'll tell you that the way we look at this, there's kind of two clients here in Harwich. There's daytime government and there's nighttime government, and they have different needs. So we do trainings for both. You know, anyone can come to either training, but, you know, there's things that, you know, the tax collector or the assessor might need to know about a certain statute, which nighttime government boards don't necessarily need to know about. You might want to be updated on it, but there might be a deep dive that we need to do with that. So when there's significant legislation, we can do training for daytime government. And again, our trainings are at no charge to you. We also have, though, the kind of the nighttime government trainings, which are open meeting law, public records law, you know, how to run a meeting, how to draft a warrant article, how to work with town meeting to get what you need to do. Those are, you know, those are the, I think, more the nighttime government focused, and we're happy to do those trainings. The third piece, and I find these kind of the most fun, or we do what are called lunch and learns. And we're happy to, you know, put in a couple of lunch and learns for you. It's just 12 to 1. We'll have a topic that both daytime government and nighttime government can come to, and we'll talk to you about it. You can Zoom in. We can do a potpourri where it's just, you know, what's going on with this, what's going on with that. But I find those are actually the best interactions with the clients. And you find out kind of what their problems are and, you know, learn more about the town along the way and have a nice time. The last thing I'm going to touch on is transition before I hand it over. If we were to be selected, we want you to know that we know how to transition into a new town. We have a process that we do when we transition into a new town. We do, first of all, we have a daytime meeting, so we'll come out and meet with all of staff, understand what their issues are, what they're working on, where we can fit in. We do the same for nighttime government. We do what we call a listening tour, where we want to go to each of your permitting boards, find out what they're working on. And we need to understand honestly from them that kind of they have the tools they need, right? So if we go to see the Conservation Commission, do they have copies of their bylaws and copies of their local regulations readily available? Do they have the Wetlands Protection Act and its regulations readily available? Do they know how to access them? So we want to make sure that they have the tools to do what they need to do, and if they don't, we want to get them those tools, because that's kind of the first order of business, is making sure our permitting boards have the tools they need to do their job, and then we backfill with whatever support they need. I'm going to stop there and hand it off to Chris.
And you forgot the most important part.
Which is?
Transition is at no cost. We do that.
That is the
on
most
our
important
time,
part,
right? I mean, because essentially, like, you want us to coming into the spot, you know, knowing what we need to know and ready to go. So, again, my name is Chris Brown. Thank you for having us tonight, and thank you also for rescheduling from the snowstorm. We were ready to come, but it would have been a little difficult drive. So, I appreciate that very much. So, my background, I've been doing this for about 21 years. 16 years of municipal law, and 5 years before that, I did litigation as an insurance defense lawyer. So, kind of a different background maybe from other people, but at the firm, everybody does general municipal law. So that's, you know, answering the basic questions about town meeting, public records, OML, ethics, you know, you name it, municipal finance, you know, questions about can we use this fund for that fund or whatnot. But we all also have, each of us have specialties, and we rely on each other. One, it's like, as the lead, I'm kind of an issue spotter, right? So I get questions from town staff or from boards, and it's my job to identify, okay, these are the people from the team that we need to help solve this problem. So as Tom said, we have an approach where we have very few towns that we're actually doing that for. You know, so it drives our responsiveness. It's very rare that if you send me an email or give me a call that I won't get back to you that day. Okay, I don't always have to answer that day because the questions are not always answerable in a day, but I'll acknowledge an email, acknowledge a phone call, often have a conversation with the staff person, and it's, you know, and they're set. But when I need to bring in people, I do that too. And the great thing is that with only 13 attorneys, town staff are going to get familiar with all of our team. I do labor. If you pick us to be your labor attorney as well as town council, I'll be assisting you with all your labor and employment issues. I also do procurement, so contracts, construction projects, you name it. I am taking all the classes that the MCPPO certification program would certify me in if I worked in town. I can't get that certification because I don't work in a town, but I've taken all the training. So the thing I like about this firm, and I've been here with Harrington Heap for 4 years. I practiced at a firm in Framingham called Petrini & Associates for 12 years before that, where I was a partner before I came over. But the thing I like about our firm is that there's really no need to bring in special counsel in any type of situation. We have someone at the firm who knows how to do just about everything, any problem that's going to come up for your town. So we're big enough to specialize where you need us to, but we're not so big that you get lost in the shuffle as a town. We have 17 towns with 13 attorneys, so that kind of gives you an idea. We've been very careful in our approach to how we build our client to attorney ratio so that you get personalized attention, like I said, accessibility and responsiveness. My clients that I work for as lead, they have my cell phone, my personal cell phone. I am accessible. If you, a lot of times you don't have, the questions that are going to come up from you come up at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, okay? And that's the expectation. This is what we do. This is our career in municipal law, right? So we're used to those questions. We're responsive to those questions. But like I said, we're big enough to specialize. We're small enough where we give all our clients individualized attention. I like to call us the Goldilocks firm. We're not too big, we're not too small. And the other thing I really like about the team that we bring to you is we all sit in your shoes. Many of us are on boards and committees in our towns where we live. We have people that serve on planning boards, that serve on ZBAs, finance committees. I made the incredible decision to be on a charter review committee in my town. It was a year of a lot of meetings, but it's a great experience. So, we sit in your shoes and we kind of know, we have that perspective of knowing what you're going through as elected officials and appointed officials as well. So that's it for me. I will pass it over to Ethan to introduce himself, and then hopefully you have some questions for us.
Yes, I don't know that there's a lot for me to follow after that excellent introduction. My name is Ethan Dively. I'm in my 7th year with Harrington Heap now. Before that, I had the privilege of working for a land court judge for 2 years. My specialty with this firm is land use, zoning, planning, conservation. If it touches or concerns land or water, it's pretty much all I do on a day-to-day basis. But of course, I do sort of general municipal work as well. I think it's been highlighted, but I can't emphasize enough, the benefit of a firm our size is that we get to know all of you very intimately. We get to answer your questions on a personalized basis. And I think we've described the fact that we'll have a lead town council and a backup. Chris and I will get every email that comes through. We'll look at it, we'll talk about it. We know everything that's going on in your community together. And what you get out of that is a real continuity of service from both of us and all the other attorneys in our office, so that you are getting consistent legal opinions from everybody that you've talked to, responsive opinions from everybody that you've talked to. And I think Tom opened with this, but the sort of feedback when you ask a question to be able to identify what the real goal is and what the underlying issues are, it takes an extra 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning of a question, but it helps us to really provide concise and timely answers that may in fact shorten the amount of time that we spend working to provide those services if we really understand sort of the core issues that underlie the questions. So getting to questions, I assume you all folks would like to ask some of us.
I'll handle it from here.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for being here, gentlemen. Appreciate your time this evening. I like one of the answers already, which was the get to know us was at no charge. So that was one of the answers to one of my questions. Thank you. You said you had 13 attorneys on board, correct?
Yes,
And 17 communities, is that what it is?
yes.
Do you have other clients besides those 17 communities?
We do have, there are communities we do special counsel work.
Okay.
Right now, we're doing special counsel work for Falmouth to kind of supplement. They have an in-house law department, but sometimes they have too much work to take on, so we do some stuff for them. I've done work for Barnstable in the past. And then we have the Berkshire Planning Commission that we do some work for. School districts here and there. Sometimes cities and towns will hire us for special counsel work, either as zoning or land use or procurement. But those things are kind of,
One-off special.
like one-off special.
Yeah, we do some work for charities. So I would say public clients, 90% of our work, private clients or private companies, 10%.
Sure. All right. So, which led to the question of, so you have the bandwidth to take on a new client?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Curious if you folks utilize, or the communities in which you represent utilize a single point of contact from the town to you as the lead attorney. Do you have many communities that do that?
Often, yes. I mean, usually it's, obviously the client, how the client wants to communicate with us is an important first step, I think, in the transition. And whether that's the town administrator or sometimes, the select board chair and town administrator, depending on the size of the town, depending on how involved in day-to-day operations the select board might be. We have small towns, we have larger towns. So there's different reporting structures, I think, in each town that we work with. But a single point of contact, not a problem at all.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, do you see that often, or is it a mixed bag?
So honestly, not so much.
Okay.
So I would say more typically, everything has to run through the TA, the town administrator, right? So you're going to CC the TA on whoever you're talking to. But in conversations with the TA, he'll say, you know what, I don't need to know, you don't need to get my permission to talk to the finance director. You don't need to get my permission to talk to the town planner. So they'll identify certain employees or certain projects where they'll say, you don't need to keep asking me. You got them.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah, and we usually would work with the client, coming in on, a clear access to town council policy, which might be set by the select board, might be set by the TA, just as part of the transition so that everyone understands, if I need to talk to town council about something, here's my checklist that I have to go through to get to them. It's a key fact of, controlling your legal budget, which we're always sensitive to. I mean, especially in this day and age, a lot of budgets this cycle are very badly impacted by health insurance in particular, as I know from my labor experience. So, we're always looking for ways, that we can help you to save on your legal expenses.
It wasn't my next question, but since you hit on it, I'll jump to it. I noticed in your packet that you sent to us, you outlined quite a few of the communities and their budgets and what their annual spends were. And there were a few, obviously, that overspent budgets, but a vast majority were under. Was that, in part because of your efforts to help them control it, or was it just essentially luck?
I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously litigation is really hard to predict, right? I mean, you could have a controversial application come before one of your permitting boards that results in a better appeal. There's not much that we can do aside from helping the board to try to craft a defensible position, right? But you really can't, you don't have any impact over if there's going to be public opposition to a project, a slip and fall that results in some lawsuit, that type of thing. In the labor field, there's lean years and there's not so lean years, right? And sometimes in that aspect, you'll see grievances increase in frequency. You might see a contract go into labor, into interest arbitration. There's those types of things that are hard to predict that will affect budgets year to year. But I do think that, the fact that we, that our teams are small enough and nimble enough that, we're acutely aware not only of what's going on in our towns, but where we've opined on things in other communities. So it's easy for us to put our pulse on, yes, I just worked on this very same issue for another town. So I'm going to share this stuff with the attorney here that's working on that. It saves time for you. It allows us to get you an answer quicker. And I think that's a large part of how we help our clients save costs.
And I'll just, if I can, just from kind of the communication perspective. So one thing I like to do is set up a regular meeting with the TA. And so that can be once every week, depending on the town, or once every month. But it's at that meeting where, you talk about, we don't want an unrealistic budget. I do not like when a town, I think, sometimes will underfund legal, and they say, yes, we're going to keep it the same. We know you're going to cost more of that. I don't like that. I don't think that's a very good way to do things. But we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about, well, if that's your budget, this is where we can cut back. If you're asking me what I think your budget should be, this is where the level of service, I think, needs to be, knowing what you have coming down the pike. But that should all be kind of part of the conversation you have with your TA.
All right, fair enough. If I can continue, Mr. Chair? I know my colleagues have some great questions as well, but I'm forgetful, as they can all attest. You talked about your trainings, and in particular, if some of the laws or regs change. Is that something you're proactive on, is reaching out to us to tell us?
Yes,
changes
very much.
occurred?
You want to take this one, Ethan?
Sure, absolutely. So a number of things we do. We send out a monthly newsletter. Most of our clients get it on the email list. That newsletter will include sort of a summary of what has happened in municipal law in the preceding 30 days, includes key judicial decisions, if there are new cases that have come out that change the way we do things, or new statutes, or other news updates. That happens on a monthly basis, and certainly things do happen faster than that. And when something comes out, we put together a client alert that goes out by email, within days, or even the same day as something relevant happens, so that all of our clients are getting the most up-to-date information, as it's happening in real time. Again, to try to head off problems and reduce costs, and to ensure that we're responsive.
Thank you for that. And you talked about, you provide trainings. Is there a set number that you provide?
No. I mean, it's really dependent on the community. I mean, generally, we try to do at least one a year. But, depending on what's happening, we can always do more.
Yeah, I think if there is, apologies, Tom. I think if there is a need, we're happy to talk about it, and we're not shy about providing those resources, because it does improve the way we do business with everybody in town when complete information is had by all.
We're not worried about getting too many. I mean, you're sitting with a lawyer talking about the law. People can only take so much of it. So.
Good point by you. Two more if I could, Mr. Chair. No, it's all riveting stuff. If we choose to splinter off a division, so I think you said labor. If we choose to splinter off labor, how do you folks handle that now with some of your clients who have separate labor council or another division?
Sure. I mean, I can say, in a lot of our towns, we are town council and labor council, where maybe I'm not the town council, but I will be the labor council. But I have towns where I'm lead right now, such as Grafton, Mansfield, and Blackstone, where there's a separate labor council. Clifford and Kenny, who I think is one of the other firms you're talking to, I work with them in 2 of my towns. Never had an issue. A lot of times there's crosstalk that needs to happen depending on what's going on with your labor unions. But I bring that perspective as your town council. It's like I can issue spot and tell you, yeah, this is something that you should definitely check with labor council about, because I do that work, and I think that's an advantage to having me as your town council at the very least.
Okay,
excellent.
excellent.
I would say that I have towns where we have separate labor council. You need to make sure you're communicating. It's not a lot of communication, but there's times when you need to talk. And those, municipal law firms, there's only so many of us. We all know each other. We'll figure that part out.
Good, bad, or indifferent. Are there times you have to, attend the same trial or same court case?
As labor council?
Yeah, well, as general counsel, if you're general counsel, have you gone with your labor counsel to the same case? Or is that something usually, any discussions would be had prior?
Yeah, not that I can think of.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say usually like in those instances, like, like an arbitration, things like that, I mean, Labor Council is going to handle that.
Yeah.
And to the extent like, something came out of it where they needed a town meeting approval of a settlement or whatever, that's when I would get involved.
Okay, thanks. And last question, if I could, and you don't really have to get too detailed right now, because I know I'm monopolizing the time, but in your...
No, you're not.
No. Jeff, wait, what are we, 10 o'clock tonight? All right, we got time.
Keep going.
We got time. Jeff usually has some great questions, by the way, so
Anymore.
be prepared. Be prepared.
Anymore.
And perhaps we can get Michael back up to the microphone. But, no, in all seriousness, if you could, and again, don't get too detailed or granular, but could you expand on, in your packet, you talked about, you do have an option for like a monthly retainer.
Sure.
So if you could expand on that just a little bit.
Sure. Well, I can tell you, we have towns that take advantage of that and some that don't. And I think that the thing with us coming into a new town, right, is that we have to get a sense of like what your historical usage has been of council, which is why it's really hard for us to peg a specific number. Not having seen anything about like what the legal expenses have been, what areas they've been in, that type of thing. So we certainly, have worked with towns to develop those, and we would be willing to talk about that with you, I think, if we got selected, but it's a matter of, we'd have to go through what your records, again, this is all part of the transition, so it's not, you're not paying for anything, but I think the idea is like, nobody wants to lose a retainer arrangement, right? Like, you don't want to have us charge you too much. We don't want to have it so that, we can't pay our people, because everyone's labor costs are going up, right? So I think the idea of looking at your historical uses of council is really important for that piece, because it helps us to at least peg a good starting point for that type. And I think, like you probably heard from other firms, I mean, there's multiple different ways you can do a retainer. You could have things that are included, that are excluded. All of that is negotiable. I mean, even the hourly rates are negotiable. I mean, I never tell you that, but, absolutely. I mean,
He wasn't supposed to say that.
We have it on recording, too.
Yeah.
No, good information, and we seldom use council. Seldom, yeah. Thank you. Well done, Mr. Chair.
Everyone says that.
And most of the time, we tell the truth. Thank you. Jeff, so before everybody uses up your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here. Proactive strategies, training, bandwidth, costs, splinter off labor. I mean, so I got hit in parking lot of Stop and Shop the other day. Do I have a case? It was snowing. I mean, I got to come up with something. No, in all seriousness, I thank you for your thoughtful responses to everything. So far, a lot of them were my questions, as you probably could imagine. How do you handle a situation with a board who is suggesting a course of action that is probably going to be legally problematic? How do you handle that?
I think Ethan's had the most recent experience with that.
I deal with this day in and day out.
Perfect.
And a large portion of this, as I think everybody can appreciate, is there are legal answers and there are political answers. And so, to my role, I do my best to provide complete legal answers so that, whether it's this board or any other permitting board, understands the framework for the decision they're making and certainly what the consequences of any decision might be. So it depends on the board, and it highly is dependent on the issue. But I want to be first and foremost certain that a board knows what they're getting into, right? So if they're going to make a decision, and I'm not going to say it's a good decision or a bad decision, but they're going to know, what the standard was, how they reached the decision they're making, and then, what the consequences are going to be. Are they, if they deny a permit, is the applicant going to file an appeal? What's that going to look like? How much time is it going to take? Or, is somebody else going to file a lawsuit? Are we going to end up in court on, First Amendment issues, discrimination issues? There's a wide variety of things that can go awry when the political issues override the legal issues. To the best of my ability and working with my colleagues, we're very gentle in, trying to provide public guidance to those boards. As your attorneys, we get to speak with you in a confidential basis, and, the confidential guidance, may be more or less severe depending on, exactly what the issue might happen to be. So it's a gentle hand, but, we want to make sure that everybody understands the gravity of the situation and the consequences of, what it might be. Obviously, not every board's the same, and, maybe I'm working with a permitting board and the relationship with the client includes, the expectation of keeping your town administrator informed of those decisions, keeping the select board informed, and so depending on the situation, I'm not saying I'll ever give incomplete advice or overrule a board, but, there may be other people that need to be brought into the conversation so that everybody who could potentially be impacted by a decision, understands what's going on so that we can have a complete conversation before a decision's made.
If I could continue?
Oh, go on.
So if this board, if we were in a confidential environment and this board was having a difficult time with our position, and I heard you say that you probably wouldn't say it's a good decision or a bad decision. What if we put it right to you and we said, what is the recommendation of council? What's your answer to that?
It depends a little bit on my relationship with the board and what I, in fact, understand that you're asking from me. If I've worked with the board for a long time and I understand their motives and you say, what do you really think? I'm not shy about giving, my sincere opinion. Ultimately, my recommendation is going to be based on sort of a risk assessment in most cases. It'll be, you can choose option A and, it may avoid litigation, but it has the negative consequences of failing to achieve a political objective or maybe a monetary sort of cost objective. And we go through the list. And so I very rarely say you have one option, unless, of course, I believe that that option, is the only way to avoid litigation where you'll lose. So I'll say First Amendment violations and things in that realm tend to be fairly cut and dry, or at least we try to make them that way. So I will, of course, sometimes the answers are simple and straightforward, but not always.
Okay. And one more, Mr. Chair. And along the same lines, how does your firm handle competing priorities with either multiple town agencies, whether it be select board, conservation, select board, historic, conservation, health department? How do you handle like inter-conflict between town departments?
Sure, it's something that we see fairly often. First and foremost, I will say you are the appointing authority. We work for you. We work at your discretion together with the town administrator. And so up front, we take our direction from you, and we will not be, for example, taking advice or giving advice to another board that contradicts what we are being directed to do by our appointing authority. That being said, we do find that there are usually ways to work out those differences. Sometimes it's as simple as having a joint meeting between boards to really understand what the issues are. It's not always possible to do, unfortunately, and so there are cases where we can't represent both boards. You hear of cases from time to time where the select board sues the planning board or the reverse.
I get that, sure.
And there's not always ways to avoid that.
Yep, understood.
I'll piggyback on that
Yeah.
answer. So, and we've dealt with this a lot, right? So it's not an unusual situation. So from my perspective, we want to fix the problem if we can. Sometimes that fix is a meeting with two chairs and the TA to see if we can get everyone pointed in more or less the same direction. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't work. I echo Ethan's statement. The select board is our appointing authority. That's who we report to. If during the discussions we can explain to the select board what their kind of statutory and bylaw authority is in a matter, and the recalcitrant board, what their obligations and statutory authority are, sometimes that helps smooth out the problem. But it's, every problem is different, and so there's, kind of sometimes a slightly different solution. Just, it depends on what the problem is and the personalities and whether or not we can work it for you.
I'm picking up on a communication theme here, and that seems to be a pretty big part of how you all operate.
We try to. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am done.
Sure.
Excellent
been
questions,
longer
by
if-
the way.
Thank you, Pete.
Would have
Thank
been
you.
longer had somebody not stolen something from you. Mark?
Chris, I think it was you. Did you work with Manchester Essex School District?
I did, yeah, on some school construction work.
Okay, school, so you didn't work with them on their school assessment formula between Manchester and Essex?
No, I did not, but I have, I've had several clients that are part of regional school districts where those types of issues have come up, so it's not something that I'm completely unfamiliar with.
Could you just name 2 districts that you've come up with the assessment formulas with school districts?
That I've come up with the assessment? Not that I've come up with the assessment for, I mean.
No, you wouldn't, but what districts have you worked with where you? with the
So
assessment?
Blackstone is part of a regional school district with Millville. We're on town council in Blackstone. The
Templeton, Phillipston.
Templeton and Phillipston,
Stockbridge as well.
Stockbridge, and then there's regional technical districts too, which there's assessment formulas for those, which pretty much all of our towns are part of, some district for a technical school.
Thank you. Our partner Donna Brewer does all that work for us.
Dawn Brewer?
Donna.
Donna Brewer, okay.
I have nothing. Thank you very much.
Stumped you.
Just up to, but they had nothing to do with these guys. The first one is, because I've noticed this, especially post-COVID, where are you guys located in terms of your attorneys? In proximity, same office, all over the place, and you operate remotely? What's the construct?
Yeah, our office is in Wellesley, but I would say our attorneys are pretty well statewide.
Yeah.
And so we have, I think like a lot of employers, we reduced our physical footprint, during COVID. So we have some people that will work remote part-time, and in the office part-time. Tom and I are the in-person warriors. We refuse to go to the remote work. Yeah, I mean, so we're flexible with that approach. I think that the great thing about Zoom and Teams and that type of thing is it's really, it's made it a lot easier to have in-person, face-to-face discussions with clients. It's very easy to set that up without having to drive or whatever, but, we have no problem, getting to wherever we need to go. I mean, we're town council in Stockbridge, and we are town council in Bourne. So we're definitely end-to-end.
I think just
I'd say that not because of the situations you're describing, it's because there's nothing that drives me more nuts than coming up with dueling opinions within the same law firm. And that happens.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, even with the work arrangements we have, I mean, we have a very active Teams chat within the office. Oftentimes if someone is remote, it's not like we're working in silos. Everyone's working together pretty much universally.
So they can't go decision shopping?
No.
So that's the point, honestly, that's the point of the Harwich expert component of town council, right? So you're not going to get an opinion without someone running it by Chris. And Chris should be able and will be able to recognize, we've told them the answer to that. We can't tell them again a different answer, right? Or we shouldn't.
Yeah, and it's part of good quality control, right? I mean, we make it our business to stay on top of everything that's happening in the towns we're lead town council for. Backup, Ethan's also going to be, we encourage the client to email both of us, that way, if I'm in a meeting, if Ethan's in a meeting, we can, and if it's something that needs to get answered right away, we have that ability to flex. But, at the end of the day, that doesn't happen in our firm because everything that gets sent to Harwich, I would see.
And I say that recognizing that through a long experience, a lawyer can only answer the question that they're posed. And sometimes some seemingly minor component is left out and it winds up turning the issue on its side.
But it's when, it's when two different boards are asking the same question of different people. That's where it runs afoul, and that's what we try to prevent. And I'll give you 30 seconds of kind of firm philosophy, just so you know. So we don't chase every town we can. We actually try to control the workload because we want a quality of life for our employees. You know, I don't want Ethan going to 4 meetings, 4-night meetings a week and having to work all day Saturday, because that's not satisfying. He's going to end up leaving. I want him to enjoy the work, but I also want him to enjoy the other part of his life. So we do that by controlling the amount of work we do. And one of the benefits to us is that we don't want to be the attorney of the day. That's very unsatisfying. I don't want me sitting there just answering emails all day without ever talking to anyone or seeing anyone or meeting with anyone. That's not enjoyable for me. I want a different approach. And so that's why I think we can avoid that process, because of the way we've set it up. We want to be part of your team. We want to communicate with you. We do not want to be lawyer of the day answering the email of the day.
A good add-on to what Tom just shared is that in my work with zoning officials and planning officials, I don't represent so many communities that I'm not aware of what the contents of everybody's zoning bylaw is. And I think that's a real strength to the way we manage each of our employees' workloads. Is there's probably 4 or 5 towns I work very closely with, and if their town planner calls me and said, I have a question about this issue, I am working with them on a regular enough basis that I'm intimately familiar with what their bylaws say. And so I'm not punting on the answer, saying, I'll have to look it up and see what your zoning says. I'm familiar enough with it because I work with it every single day. And there's an efficiency to that because I do enough of this work on a daily basis that I don't have to spend 10 or 20 minutes looking through the bylaw to understand what's going on. I work with it enough to be familiar with it, and it creates a better result for everybody involved, because I'm able to have an easy conversation that in some cases can be a 10-minute telephone call instead of 45 minutes back and forth on email and then a research question that gets tasked out to one of our associates. I'm familiar with the text of your bylaw, and we can answer things much more efficiently that way.
So I'm going to wheel this back around to what you actually said in the beginning, because it was said to the last law firm, is that our expectation is that you are not going to give us policy initiatives, that you are going to wind up acting in order to advance a legal pathway to advance our policy initiatives. So you're not going to be offering alternative policies.
We are here as problem solvers to help facilitate your goals. And if the question is maybe what are the possible ways to approach this issue?
How to legally get to where we need to get.
Yeah.
Right. Our guidance could come close to policy if what you're looking for are options. But again, we are problem solvers, not policymakers.
I can just give you one quick example. We're working on a zoning bylaw in another town. The way they're approaching this is not the way I would approach it. And I think it's not illegal, but I think it's problematic. I've explained to them, it's not illegal, but it's problematic, and here's why it's problematic. But they think it's the right thing to do. So once I have unburdened myself of, here's my concern, it's now your policy, and I'm going to do the best I can to get you your policy.
Okay. Jeff?
Just 2 quick questions. The town of Harwich is an incredible town. Are we similar to the towns that you already have in your client list? Are we very different than the towns that you service? And why did you respond to the RFP for the town of Harwich?
Well, I think all of our towns are unique. We do have several coastal towns, so I think we understand, the types of issues that Harwich deals with. Situate, Bourne, those are 2 towns where we're town council for now. As I said before, we do a lot of special counsel work for Falmouth, so we're familiar with, the types of issues that Concoms and planning boards, ZBAs face in coastal communities. Why did we respond to the RFP? Well, I think we were invited to respond. and we don't decline invitations to respond to an RFP ever. We're always interested in having conversations with boards like yourself about what your legal needs are. We think that, with the team we have, that taking on Harwich as a client would not be, against like the model that we're trying to set. We have room at the table for another family member, I guess would be the best way to say it, because, our clients, we do get very close relationships with them. I think if you can take one thing away from this, is that you should talk to our clients because they're our best advertisement. They can certainly tell you about how quick we are to get back to them, about how much we bring background and context into every issue that they ask us about. Like we remember things. We have that way of kind of treating legal issues that I think is unique to the other firms that you probably talk to.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay, any other questions?
Chris, I wanted to go on record that I noticed Tom skipped right over your quality of life and only talked about Ethan, so clearly you pissed him off.
He's a partner, I don't care.
But no, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I think we all do. Thanks for coming in, appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for
Appreciate
having us.
Thank you
Safe
all.
driving.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So, I want to at least address B first in a universal way because there's been some confusion. Some board members are familiar with this. At some point or another, there seemed to be some confusion about whether February 2nd was the closing date for submissions and the final language was the 13th. I thought we were pretty explicit last week, but if there's any question, because we appear to have taken some sort of action in early January, that might seem to indicate that the February 2nd date is the date. I don't feel like our job is to get a gotcha situation for the public. We've been talking about the 13th as the date. So I would entertain a motion from anybody on the board to verify that our expectation is the final date for submission of all articles in final form is February 13th at 4 in the afternoon.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
I'll say that I agree with you as far as this isn't a gotcha thing. But I think we were clear in January that the closing of the warrant was February 2nd at the close of business. So with that said, I'm fine if we want to have a motion to reopen the warrant until the 13th. I'm not sure if that was the exact motion or just clarifying.
I think it is the motion to reopen.
Reopen?
Yes.
And I say that in the conversation because I think, from my own perspective, I was pretty clear last week that I said it was the 13th. I actually made a joke out of it that it was Friday the 13th. It was somewhat ironic. But it does seem misleading to everybody that we could have that conversation. No one corrected it last week. And I know that there's a bunch of people that might want to put petition articles in that are not going to be thrilled that it's too bad that you're too late because it was a secret. It was February 2nd. It may not have been a secret, but so much water has gone under the bridge.
Yeah, again, that's the only point I want to stress is that it's not a secret, and it was in Tony's timeline each and every week that it was February 2nd. So again, I'm okay if we want to reopen. I want it to be clear that we did actually vote on it, and it was codified.
Emily.
Good evening, Emily Mitchell, Town Clerk. I just wanted to, excuse me. Sorry, just swallowed a little dust or something
I
on
get
the way
all
up.
chucked up when I talk about this. too.
Whew, sorry about that. I just wanted to reiterate, I know we had discussed, I think, last week or the week before, the charter does differentiate petitioned articles versus town-initiated articles. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Turn that fan on.
I need to. I'm ready to go sit down and walk back up. I'm sorry, so the...
Leave something up there?
Excuse me, sorry. So the charter does say that petitioned articles, citizen petitioned articles, are due by... This is the worst I've ever had. Can I have that? Thank you.
We all get choked up talking about the warrant.
By noon the second Friday in February. So that would be 12 noon this Friday,
Noon then,
the
not 4
13th, for
p.m.
petitioned articles. The charter doesn't speak to a deadline for the board to place town-initiated articles. So petitioned articles, the charter speaks to that. It says noon the second Friday in February. It does not speak to town-initiated articles, and I'm going to go sit down before I choke any further. Thank you.
So noon.
Okay, so we're going to stick with the town inside ones at 4 p.m. and the petition ones at noon, same date.
I'm sorry, are we going to noon time? Or we,
Noon for the petition and 4 o'clock for the internal town articles. And Natasha understood that when I spoke with her today. That was her understanding. Well, there. Any further discussion about it? I know you made yourself clear, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay.
I have a couple more questions for Emily. Sorry.
The question I have is, do we want to go through these right now, or do we want to wait until the Friday deadline and then start slogging through these next Monday?
slog next week.
Yeah.
Next week.
Okay. And the budget? I'll defer to you. It's
So,
been sent over to finance?
not yet. So I'm still working on transitioning it over systematically and printing out all the new materials for the booklets. Should be done the next couple of days, that part, at which point it will be.
I can't emphasize more that it is what we know to be true based on revenues, and we haven't voted a final budget, but we have sent them over what we consider to be the budget that we'd like them to consider.
Given the information we know today, yes.
Okay. So, Michael, you said you wanted to talk to some of this?
Thank you. Probably just clarification.
That's fine.
Not Article 39. I don't believe we have an article number yet for the, through you, Mr. Chair, for the roof at the cultural center and the funding source.
I have notes on that already.
Okay, so my question is, where did this come from? Whose recommendation was it to take that money, and did they have any institutional knowledge of what town meeting previously voted?
I want to say it was Tony, because he was forming the budget. But you have an excellent point. That's the problem, is that there's been so many shuffled empty seats that, you're right. I mean, I think we need a discussion on that, and if that does indeed cover sucking money out of what we had been thinking was land deposit money to spend it on a roof, then I know Mark's got some thoughts about the roof already, about whether we should or even should do it right now. So that discussion is open, and we haven't made that, it's not cast in stone.
Okay, I guess the point really is, I'd like to hear from our town leaders that they don't support this, that they don't support using money that was voted one way at town meeting. Now, Don, we did have several conversations over the last 2 years about sweeping, as you mentioned earlier, working with finance to sweep old articles, stuff that wasn't used, stuff that wasn't done, but not stuff that had an intent.
No, we did talk a couple of weeks ago about land for land, so we have had that discussion, and I'm going to have to go back and see the crosswalk about how that was supposedly funded in the capital plan. Because you're right. I mean, I don't intend to support pulling money from those articles, and I'm not sure that anybody on the board does, given how it was derived.
And given the speech tonight from the assessing office on what great work they're doing and how much money we're putting back in the coffers. But having that nest egg for these eminent domain takings to save us from a conservation lawsuit, whatever it may be as it relates to land, is extremely important. And I know there's a fair amount of anxiety out in the public since this has come up. So the sooner that the board could take this up and put those people's mind at ease so that they're not building this fight for town meeting floor, the better, in my opinion.
I'm just caught short tonight, so it'll be on next week's agenda to actually verify where that money's coming from and why.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, if I may. Matt Sutphin. I remember reading somewhere that there was a $650,000 number out there for dealing with the cultural center roof. slate roof. Am I informed properly or not?
You're more the expert on that
I
than
believe
anyone.
it was $600,000, Matt?
Yeah.
The cultural center?
Does the town have any report as to the number of cracked slates up on that roof?
As I said, that's what we have to get to the bottom of, I'm sure.
Well, I'm just worried.
To be able to give us that report.
Well, with candor, I'm just worried. I get bothered when somebody throws out a big number because then eventually everybody feels they have to meet it. I've installed a few slate roofs, 2, not few, 2. Slates are pretty stubborn. They will crack here and there depending on stress. But generally as a matter, the roof is, if it's slate, is there to stay for a long time. So I can't imagine taking all those slates off. I don't understand why anybody would even suggest it. And apparently, if there's a $650,000 quote, somebody has suggested it. I encourage you to really look at remedial work, and it may be $100,000. But if all of a sudden we're kind of used to 650, I mean, I find that very frustrating, very frustrating. So I hope you'll do your diligence, spend a few thousand here and there, get some assessments, and you'll be much better off for it. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. We do promise to have that back on the agenda because it's passed through a lot of hands, as you may have noted, since January to now. So we need to verify whether it's even needed and how much, where the funding should be coming from. Okay. So relative to the budget, that it is where it's supposed to be, and they can start holding their own hearings, and they're going to be meeting with you, Jen, correct?
Yeah, but it's not to them yet. It will be.
Okay, but it will be, and eventually that's going to be the discussion, you with them.
Yeah.
Okay. It's my favorite discussion because I am not a real big fan of this, but discussion on establishing a purchasing card policy and standard operating procedures.
So this evolved, this conversation with Tony and I started primarily as coming before you to talk about a solid plan for bill of prior years, timely because town meeting is coming up. And the way that the past practice here in Harwich is very counter to my experience of how that process typically goes. So it started as that, and it's kind of evolved. And just to give you, before I delve into the two pieces that are in front of you, so I have a vision from a financial perspective, and I've talked a little bit about it. We'll start to see it more and more as I have time to kind of drill down into that. But I would love to see Harwich establish much more robust financial policies. I think that beyond the fact that what we have right now is somewhat outdated, it's insufficient. I think that, we could do better. And not only that, I'm going to shoot for the stars and say maybe we could be exemplary. And so these things are examples of that, right? Like maybe we could implement into our financial policies some more internal controls, addendums to, if you will, the financial policy that give more clear standard operating procedures, forms, and policies that relate to very important processes. These two of which are at the top of my list, partially because of time, and the P card because I think that it needs to be reeled in a little bit, if you will, how it's being operated currently. So to start with the bill of prior years, I'll pick that one first just because of its importance to the upcoming town meeting. Harwich has historically handled it through the town admin's office, a little bit backwards because the town accountant still needs to validate and approve that those expenditures are valid and good uses of town funds, even though they're for a prior year purpose and being approved by town meeting. So historically, the town administrator's office would send out an email to the staff saying, if you have any bills of prior years, submit them to us. We will compile them, put them before the board, and have an amount on the warrant that would be voted at town meeting. I think the accounting should be the responsible party. Finance should be the responsible party for bill of prior years to ask for, request, and receive, maintain the list. I think there's a couple of choices. I think that you have the ability to allow those to stay open up to the day of town meeting and have a quick meeting before, a quick session before town meeting and vote the final number of bill of prior years. I've had that experience with the town. But you also could have a point at which that gets cut off, and no more will be accepted. The only concern I have about cutting it off too early is you have, most of the time, one town meeting a year. So those bill of prior years can sit for a long time if they're found shortly after town meeting. They may sit for 12 months before they get paid. So it is the department's responsibility to make sure that they're coming forward with those things. They should know when they have bills that are unpaid. They should know. I think there's an evolution here that we're working into, kind of streamlining some of those processes so that they are more familiar with what those might be. But in the meantime, I wanted to establish a form. I'm a big fan of forms. You guys are going to probably, and the departments will probably get really tired of hearing me say it. But if I provide you with a form that tells you what I need, I'm pretty much guaranteed to get what I need in order to do my job and to do it proper, right? Then it takes all the questions out of it. You know what I need. It's on the form. You provide it to me, and I can give you a quicker answer. It's faster. It's more efficient. It's just better. And it makes things more uniform, right? So there's a form, I believe, and a standard operating procedure that's included in your packet for how to handle bill of prior years. Obviously open to changes and discussion on, how that should work, particularly as it relates to the timing in the end of closing those for final submissions. But this is, and I'll piggyback on that just a little bit. I had a long conversation with Tony and Jay both about, my goals of, bridging the gap with the team here, that I feel like the line of where finance is and needs to be is a little far into where departments need to, kind of meet a different line. And so I think a lot of that stems from the fact that a lot of department heads have not been given either the correct or any guidance or training on what that means, right? What does it mean for me? What's my fiduciary, my finance responsibility as it relates to my role as a department head? And so I talked to Jay and Tony about my goals of establishing an education routine for staff and department heads in the beginning to kind of develop an understanding, create communication, break down silos, and build a better understanding of what the financial responsibilities on all of us are, so that those things don't just land at finance's feet to say, hey, can you figure this out for me? But we all are playing for the same team, working towards the same goal. So Jay was quick to volunteer himself prior to his start date to come and join me to kick off my education series with department heads, which the first class will start next, it's on the 18th, next Thursday, I believe, where I'm going to sit and have the first discussion with department heads about these financial responsibilities and try to kind of start to bridge that gap. So these forms, these policies, these procedures, which will continue to happen over time as I'm able to dig in on all of these things, are the beginning of something that I hope you will like to be something bigger for establishing these financial policies that make us stronger, more robust, make everything much more clear, so on and so forth. So if I can, Mr. Chair, switch to the P-card policy, that came up because there were a lot of things coming across my desk that were concerning. Activity that was taking place on P cards that, as you can imagine, probably should be a little bit different. Charging sales tax on items because it's easier to buy it through an online account, or and again, I'm not laying any blame at anyone's feet. It could be education, just understanding that is not the way that things should happen, right? So I want to be clear with everyone what the rules are. I want to set the framework, put up the barriers, right, and let people know how far can I go this way, how far can I go this way, and where do I need to stop. And so the P card policy is something that I think is very important because, P cards, there was a big reluctant start to P cards in municipal finance because the town accountant has the authority, right, to predetermine before expenditure if an item is approved or not for purchase. And the P card, the concerns were that it would usurp that authority. And I think that in some cases it does, or it has. So I think that we need to establish a policy. What's acceptable for the P card to be used for without prior approval? And beyond that, we need to create something in which there's accountability for when those things are not followed. What does that look like? I don't know. I mean, losing card privileges. I mean, there's a whole slew of things. I think the important thing to stress is that, none of these rules or policies or limitations or guidelines ever are because you think someone is going to break the rule. It's because you want to eliminate the ability for anyone to break the rule, right? Myself included, everyone included. So internal controls, right? We want to be able to control that certain things can't happen. So I think whether or not we move in this direction, because currently I will say that the P cards are given out by departments. Best practice is that those P cards should belong to a person, not to a department, primarily because there's a responsible person that can be the point, and it should be the department head, right? Who signs off on everything. When you have it in a department, if anyone hilly-nilly can go to a drawer and take out the card and make a charge, and there are issues, how do you pinpoint who that person is that made that particular charge? So I think we need to fine-tune that process a lot more. I am a fan of them existing because I've also been in a situation where a town did not have P cards, and you had staff that were, in certain situations having to pay for things themselves, sometimes large purchases on their own credit cards, and then submit them for reimbursement, which, as you can imagine, goes through a process. It's not, immediate. You don't get a check tomorrow. I don't want that either. But I think that there is a way that we can be between that and where we are now.
And do you see what you've got here as draft as a recommendation to get you where you want to? Because I personally really dislike them, because I've been in other levels of government. Minimizing them is actually a good thing, and holding people responsible is also a good thing, because there can be all kinds of problems associated with this.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I would love to shift this to a more personal than departmental. I would love to put limitations on what is approved for use without additional approval. I've included forms in there that would, and another one that I thought of after the fact, I should have included in the packet a form for prior approval, where they submit something that says, this is what I want to charge, and gain approval before they charge it, right?
The reason I'm asking this is, we have a process too. We'd go to a first reading and a second reading. So are you comfortable that this is what you want us to actually consider to be implemented?
Yes.
Okay. Because Anybody have any comments on this? Because ultimately, it would have to be agended in sequential meetings for us to be able to have that discussion.
I just have, if I could.
Yeah, Mark.
Jen, I'll be down at True Value Hardware, and the wharfager will come in and get a couple of shackles and a couple of bolts. And so your new policy will mean he just needs to take it back to the office and just have it logged in for the, just tell me, because he'll be there almost every day sometimes.
No, we have a town account with the local hardware store, so he can just say, put this on the town of Harwich account. We'll get a bill, or the department will get a bill, they'll send it through to us, and we'll pay that invoice. So this is really, honestly, and most things we can do like that, right? Where we set up a terms account, if you will, with a vendor, and get invoiced and pay it through an invoice that completely surpasses the need for utilizing a P card. A P card, you know, why you need them, right, or why they're good to have is, for instances, where you need to book a hotel for travel, or, you know, something where they're not going to invoice you for that, right? Holiday Inn is going to say, sorry, give me a credit card. So I think that, and when people are traveling too, for conferences or whatever, being able to utilize, the department heads to utilize that for their meal stipends, or or not stipends, sorry, their meals, and for, you know, things of that nature while they're there. I mean, there's a number of things that can be included in that. I think I was fairly limiting in my scope, because I feel that, you know, this can be an evolution, right? Like, I mean, I think if we start to learn more things that become necessary, or create emergent situations that we didn't intend to create, you know, I'm very open to those conversations. But I have run that by both Jay and Tony, both of which also felt that it was warranted and good, you know, language for what we need.
Excuse me, thank
A lot
you.
of that going on.
Yeah. Maybe never mind.
It's nothing to sneeze at.
This here, I'm actually surprised, and I was blown away when it was in the packet last week that it wasn't already in place. Coming from a world that is highly regulated and governed, it's, P cards are an absolute liability to any community or organization. And so having a system in place such as this is a must. You know, we hear about all the time, whether it's, you know, in the Commonwealth of Mass or across the country, where abuse is applied to P cards. I don't think that's the case in Harwich, which I'm happy about, but I think putting a plan like this together and a policy like this together is tremendous. To your point, it outlines to staff what the requirements are and what their obligations are. And in fact, and you're spot on, no card should ever be issued to a department. It always needs to be issued to a person. But you're spot on in the fact that once they know, perhaps there's far and few issues in between, but you also find out that some folks have no interest in obtaining a P card at that point, because they're signing off on these obligations and requirements. The only other thing I could see in here, and I don't want to get too detailed with you right now on it, because it may not be necessary, because if there's a lost or stolen card, typically the bank is going to provide you with the affidavit that needs to be completed for an unauthorized transaction on an account. I don't know how you folks operate, but if it's all done internally, then you may want a lost or stolen affidavit, not just a lost receipt affidavit.
Okay.
So
Yeah, fair.
that way, again, if they say, I thought I had it with me, you know, I saw the charge, I can't find the card. So yeah, there is some language in there that they're responsible to report it, but if they've seldom used the card, they may not realize that it's lost or stolen at that point in time. So you may want that affidavit, just so again, they're signing off that they had no knowledge of it, but something you can look at on your own. So
Yeah,
I don't need to muddy the waters for you, but thank you for putting this together. And when it comes to the prior year bills, spot on again. I didn't see in here, though, you alluded to the time frame as far as when we'd keep it open. That's not written in here, is it?
I think it's in the SOP that I included.
All right, I must have just glanced over the actual timeframe of cutoff. But I'm happy to go with your recommendation. If you think town meeting is the appropriate way to go, I'm happy with that as your recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my only concern is when you typically have one meeting where these can be approved a year, it's just a long time in between,
Right.
so might as well give
As
every
much time as we
moment you
yeah.
can.
Yeah, so I'd be fine with the town meeting date. Thank you.
We good to go to another meeting as a first reading then?
Well, two questions if I
Sure.
could, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair. And Mark, do you want to?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Prior year bills, spot on, thank you. I think it's perfect. P cards clearly stands for Pikarski card, because it's all about controls, right?
All about
Financial
control.
controls. And that's exactly what it is for me, the way I'm viewing this, is internal controls have to be wildly solid. And you've put together a fantastic system. And that's been demonstrated. My only other question is program administrators and finance director, is that one and the same?
I am currently the program administrator,
Yes.
so,
We wouldn't be looking for another program
I
administrator?
mean, typically you'd have two,
see.
and so I yet to be determined. In my past experience, it's been myself and the treasurer collector,
Okay.
because they're closely involved with this process as well. I have yet to have a conversation with our treasurer collector on this subject, but currently, right now, I'm program administrator.
Yeah, and nothing against anybody else who might become part of the program administration, but I think the less the better.
Oh, sure.
You know, I think if you and then department heads, the P cards go to people and not departments, I think, yeah, I mean, you really put together, I think, a very solid system here.
Thank you.
So I'll take 3. Where do I sign up?
Take 3.
I'll take 3.
As long as you sign off on them, we'll give them to you.
Thank you, Jen, for all your work.
You're welcome.
Well, this answers the question, what she does with her spare time during the day.
Spare time, what's that?
You know what, Jen, you promised all of this in your interview, and you're delivering on every
I
single
did.
bit of it, so thank you.
You're welcome.
I do believe, that based on, especially what you guys were talking about, is that we absolutely need something like this.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be confusing luck with skill, because we don't have any real process
Yeah.
that ensures that there's compliance and responsibility. So,
And a lot of these things are great. I mean, you mentioned like having issues with them. It's good to have, I mean, it's good to be cautious and careful and have skepticism, but I think anything that's managed well, this is one of those things, right? When it's managed well, it's great. It's a great tool to have. When it's mismanaged, it's awful. It's awful.
I get it. Anita, do you have anything you want to add to it?
I just have one question. Great presentation. I trust you. I trust your judgment, and this is going to work. Would each department head be the one that would be issued one of these cards? Each department has one person in the department that would be issued?
So I think that I want to delve deeper into who currently has them and assess where that need exists. But yes, theoretically, and I think it absolutely has to be the department head.
Right.
And it absolutely has to be a situation where even if they're allowing someone else to use the card to physically enter a payment into something, that they're responsible for signing off on that and validating that it was a proper expenditure from their perspective, which then would also go through my office, right? So it would be checked by my staff and ultimately be signed by me.
So it's accountability.
It is.
Thank you very much.
And given what we were just talking about, this gives us a week, because we're going to be riffing off of this next Monday then. I'll promise to put this on as a first reading, so that it gives you plenty of time. You're not going to be looking at it on Friday or Saturday. It's here, and this is what we're going to be dealing from. If that's all right with everyone.
Excellent.
Sure.
Okay. Okey dokey, so...
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to be bouncing around on a couple of these things. You're going to be talking about something else, but
Yeah.
discussion of the cultural center. I did, come on up. I did say to Kara on the way in that I know Jay would like to be involved in this. He may not be an employee at the moment, but he will certainly have to be responsible for the consequences of whatever we do. And I'm seeing flashing lights. But I'd like the presentation. I'm not sure that we want to take a vote one way or the other until you present this to us and we forward it to Jay so that he has like a handle on what it is that we're planning on doing.
Absolutely. Kara Mawini, Director of Cultural Affairs. I certainly anticipated that this would be the first of several rounds of conversation that we would have regarding this topic. And what I tried to do for tonight's presentation is truly to go over where we started 3 years ago, this process, where we had conversations in the fall last, and then kind of add in some additional language I felt was critical for clarifying points. Because as emotions fuel a lot of things that we do need to make sure that we stick to the facts and the details in which we have in front of us. So first and foremost, I would like to address was a conversation that came up in the fall, which was the difference between what's a retail business and a creative business. And that is simply that a creative business is considered by the Massachusetts Cultural Council, the state of Massachusetts, and the economic development that they are in fact a business, an artist, a creative, a maker, or somebody who is established in the sense of making their wares or their works for the consumption of individuals like ourselves are in fact to be treated as such a business. Now, where the difference lies is that they're not retail in the sense that they don't have a brick and mortar. They don't have an inventory control. They're not customer facing, meaning every single day they're not in the store talking to people. These are individuals that are in the realm of creating, and then they see people when they have open studios or when they're teaching, when they're calling people in for special guest visits or anything like that. So I wanted to make sure to have that opportunity, and the reason for this is through the Department of Cultural Affairs, we have spent a better part of my 4 years that I've been here trying to educate the creatives and educate artists with the aid of the Community Development Partnership of Cape Cod that they in fact are a business and they should treat themselves as such by making sure they either have a DBA, they have an EIN, they're doing taxes the way that they're supposed to do, they have a business checking account, so on and so forth. So it would be foolish if I sat here and said no artist or creative is a business when we educate them to act as a business. So that was one item I wanted to make sure we addressed. I do have passages regarding how Mass Cultural Council does help also educate on a state level, and that is through the Business Front Door program, which is through the Executive Office of Economic Development. Any artist or creative, if they're ever coming to me on the town level or just on a regional level and they're like, hey, what do I do? I'm really starting to get in the market of vendors. I don't know, like in this town, can I do that? Do I need a license? Because some require peddler's license, some might require a market license, depending on where they're trying to sell and what they're trying to get into in their market. We can lead them to the resources available through the state, but also resources within the region as well. So it's extremely highly important that when we ever do talk about artist studios, artists and creatives, that they in fact are considered a business in a sense. They're not retail, absolutely 100%. That is one thing that we talked about in our use policy, which I will be bringing up very shortly, which is retail business do not exist at the Cultural Arts Municipal Building. That is frowned upon. We have language against it. We are not a 9-to-5 shop. The only person you're going to see if you come in Monday through Friday between the hours of 8:30 and 4 p.m. are me. And if you'd like to shop, you're going to be shopping and learning about what the Cultural Affairs Department does and what the cultural districts do. You will not be able to walk in and grab a painting from just anybody. That is not what we operate like, and that is not how we function. So there is some language in here is really specific to how our studios operate, and a lot of the language that we are going to give you tonight, that I will give you tonight, is in regards to our studios and how we treat them as such. The one thing I'd like to preference is that I've been here for 4 years now, and prior to me, the concept of how they were rented, the paperwork behind it, it was very different. things have changed dramatically in those 4 years that we've been here and having the same conversation year after year. They've been healthy conversations, sometimes fueled with a lot of emotion, and that is good, but it is something that we need to look at as a whole and understand that things have drastically changed through the aid of the board, through this further development of us understanding where we're at and where we want to go as a town and for the community. And we need to acknowledge that what was 6 years ago is not today. And I think that needs to be a healthy conversation on the community level and with our artists, with our creatives, because things have changed so much and we're changing for the better. Now on to use policy. So with the use policy, we're talking 2 policies, and this is widely different than anything we have ever done before. The first policy is in your packet, so this would be our first read of that policy. We'll bring it back for, but this is specific to facility use through event rentals, classes, workshops, and art exhibits. This is everything that is not a license agreement. So anytime we rent the gym, anytime I have a group come in to do an art exhibit, any program that wants to come in to do our classes, the kitchen, and anything like that, they all fall within this use policy. Now for our kitchen, back in, I think, the summer, we approved the use policy specific to the kitchen and the culinary practices because that's its own layer and its own beast. This would be everything in between. So everything that is non-license agreements. And that is simply because these are unique. They're 1 day, sometimes maybe 3 days. We do have a few retreats that do come in for 3-day events. There are specific guidelines to aid us with the language that is new in this use policy. So a few highlights that you would see when you read through this are specific terms relating to marketing approaches, ticketing, event management, and basically anything that we've encountered in the last, call it 4 years that I've been here with Harwich, that we would need to identify is a problem or an area in which we need to further establish to people that are looking for the use of the facility what is permittable and what is not. I'll spill the hat. We're working with a promoter out of Tennessee to bring a very popular group onto the Cape. They're trying to break in the scene. And conversations we've been having for the 2 weeks is based on their sound rider. So that is everything that they dictate to a venue that says, we want X, Y, Z. And when they said, well, what's your rates? And I said, it's $100 an hour, explained everything, all of our policies to them. They said, great, so you provide a sound technician and you're going to set up the band. I said, absolutely not. You need to hire someone for that. And we had to reiterate that. But he said, but there's absolutely no language in that in your current policy online. And I said, you are absolutely correct. So that language has now been added in this proposed use policy so that we can further define how it should be set up. And this is not new. I will say I did steal my old hat for the town of Plymouth when I decided to develop some of this language so that we can further define what would be best practice to allow ourselves to have basically not as much exposure to risk at the end of the day. So the use policy is very different. Now on the other side, the long-term license holders. This is established through an RFP process. So that was also proposed in your packet as far as the draft language that would be behind the proposal when we release to public. These proposals are based on disposition of surplus property, which is under Chapter 30B, Section 16. So that is all procurement talk language, and I don't like to talk over anyone's head when it comes to that. So this is one of those things that through the former administration was established that we essentially were renting our property in the wrong manner. So we had lease agreements, not license agreements. The town of Harwich in 2014-15 had received the property back from the school, so from Monomoy Schools, Harwich Middle School. And during that time, the property was deemed surplus property. Automatically at that point, it would have been considered a Chapter 30B procurement process. Granted, we use the facility for a matter of municipal matters, it can still blend. So under the state statute is you can get rid of the whole property for surplus use and rent out the entire facility, or you can do pockets, which is what we currently see at the facility at 204 Sisson Road. So we have deemed, I believe it's 33 units at this current moment that we rent in this structure of surplus property. We are proposing a lighter percentage of studios in the floor plan, which we will get to. However, the concept is still the same that it was from the very beginning. It just wasn't identified or called out as it is. But I would like to be the bear in the room that actually calls it out the way it needs to be, which is that it is dictated by a state statute, in which case this is Chapter 30B. So we are disposing of surplus property as deemed, if you so choose to continue to deem it as surplus property. This would be your opportunity to not do so.
I think that I would prefer to get a legal opinion on that because it's hard to consider something surplus that is being put to use within the context of a municipal building that we've agreed to operate. That would be, in my world, from the federal government, surplus is when you abandon the use entirely. It is not, I know that Joe had some feelings on this subject, but I'm sure Jay also does.
Absolutely, and I agree with that 100%. I did check the state statute before I came to verify there are 3 to 4 levels of surplus property. And yes, full surplus, meaning full disposition of property, is certainly one level, but you can do units. And I would love, when we get into discussion tonight, to certainly take all the questions so that I can get the answers we need for our second discussion to follow up on these matters. So within the license agreement, several items have been added. So you'll see language as far as the request for proposal, what would be hitting the street, that is draft form. You will see the qualifications in which we are seeking. You will also see the extended license agreement language, which includes their own level of a use policy. So items like hazardous materials, addressing and attending open studio space, how they can and can't use their space, and then the biggest thing is their hours of operation. And there is a significant change to that. Currently, in our current license agreements, we provide Monday through Friday operations, 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m., inclusive of town holidays and any other time that they can essentially get in, whether they're shoveling themselves in or not. Because this is a risk factor and no staff is available for any type of resource during a holiday, the suggested recommendation during the license agreement phase, when we review that policy, is simply, we are still suggesting the Monday through Sunday, call it, 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. access time, but it would no longer include town holidays. So if the town is closed, the building is closed. And then the same thing for weather-related emergencies. We have seen too much of a significant rise that when we say the facility is closed due to an emergency matter with snow, like we just had in the past storm, or when we've had power outages, or another issue that we've had to close the facility, artists and creatives are still accessing the space, which, in my opinion, should not be permissible. So that language is now within this new language of the license agreement. And then a very hot topic, as I wanted to include, was as far as the rate structure goes. Currently and it says FY23, and that is simply because that is the last time we actually assess these rates. And if we did it on a scale of square footage. So for the FY23 rates, we did 100 square feet to 300 for $250 a month, 301 to 500 for $300 a month, 501 to 700, $350 a month, 701 to 1,050 square feet for $400 a month. Lower level was not online and was held for municipal use. For FY27, I'm proposing a $25 increase based on the square footage rate, with the addition of bringing the lower level space back online for its own rate of $850 a month. The language within the proposal is very specific to being highly advantageous to have people who are more engaged in creating things that will drive tourism community into the town. So things like program-based STEM labs or anything like that. The lower level is a great space. Our proposals also allow for people to get in and go on their own proposal together to share said space. So that is something that I certainly believe in order to attain our revenue goals that we might want to achieve, we need to bring that space back online. Jay can certainly weigh in on this as far as future, but Per Joe, it was held for municipal use. Tony and I spent a very extensive time talking about it. There is absolutely zero municipal use for that space, and it would be better off suited if we rented it like we do our other studio spaces.
That's the
Now-
basement?
Yeah, I'm sorry?
That's the basement,
Yes,
which
the
was
old
the
shop.
former shop,
Yes,
yeah.
the former shop or cafeteria if you were a high school student there.
Many a step
Many-
stool was made there.
Yes, I have learned a lot of fun facts about how the building actually was designed when it was a high school, so it's very intriguing. But alas, the market rate still stays the same. The one thing we are noticing on the Cape, however, is a decline in studio openings. And I do say that with some precaution because there was a church who came to me not too long ago with some studio openings that they just started in their basement at their church. So we're seeing a decline, meaning the Cultural Center of Cape Cod has kind of moved away from their studio space. We see the P-Town Commons are starting to move some less space. There is some movement regionally that's reducing artist studio ability, although it's still an effort on the state level that we want to maintain this. The rate structure is still $3 to $5 per square foot. So what does that mean for Harwich? We are still significantly less than market value because if we look back to the original language as to what was adopted, the goal was to have affordable studio space. If we were to charge what market value is, it'd be over $1,000 per month, and that is not affordable studio space for any creative or artist that's out there. Our next topic would be our floor plan overview. Currently, for the FY23, we have 33 spaces. So right now, this is what the Cultural Municipal Arts Building looks like. And that is simply that our first floor, which is on the left-hand side of the screen, we have 17 single units along with one shared unit. The second floor, which is on the right side of the screen, is 11 single units with 4 shared units. This is current how we look. We have 3 municipal offices, myself being one of them. As we know, we removed 2 staff from the Albro House and they went into studios that were vacant. With that being said, what we are proposing, and I broke it down so that we can take this one step at a time. Through the conversations that we had in October, there was a suggestion that we would want to reserve municipal space so that we don't encounter a situation where we would have to terminate a license agreement in the event that we needed the space. This, again, is all dependent on the conversations that need to take place as far as who, what, and how, and what do we want to do and where do we want to do it. The most feasible space that does make sense is, of course, the former administration wing of the facility. On a town level, you're going to see all the yellow, but it's going to be on the right-hand side of the screen, labeled as the creative suite for municipal use. This specific area can be locked and secured and alarmed with its own code. So in the sense of what you're deciding to put in for municipal use, this is your opportunity to say, we can secure that space. So regardless of who we decide to put in there, the space is the most secured. Any other avenue that you choose, whether it's a hallway of a first floor, a hallway of a second floor, does not feasibly make sense. So in conclusion with Tony, we said this is the most feasible sense. Now that would mean the Pine Oaks room, which everyone wants to talk about as well because it's not municipal and it's not creative. I cannot speak to their license agreement. I can say simply that their room would be just as affected as any artist or creative in that space. So if this floor plan was to become active, this would be within the new proposal and effective on July 1. So all of those studios would remain vacant until municipal staff move in or until we deem we really don't need it, in which case we can do our same process all over again, which is go to a license agreement, go to an RFP, and reopen those studios back up. The
Can I
second
just
floor-
stop you for one second?
absolutely.
Here? Because what we're trying to get involved with in the new administration, if you will, is trying to get data on all things in terms of what we're doing now and what we project out as near-term and long-term needs. And my question here is, anybody actually got any firm numbers on what our near-term and midterm use as a municipal thing? Because I'm just sitting here saying to myself, why would we keep something locked for a couple of years on the off chance that we're going to use it?
I would answer that with every individual has a different opinion.
Yeah,
So
but ours counts.
I do know that Tony was actively seeking about pooling our current department heads to get an idea of space needs, requirements,
That's
and
what
an
I think should be
understanding.
the precursor, is what I'm saying.
Right. So the conversations, I would say, have started. They need to continue with Jay so that he can see that. The one cautionary item I have is that we do have an essence of time. So we are needing to get this out. The RFP needs to be posted for 30 days. It will take a week to go through all the proposals. It could take longer, depending on how many proposals we get. And we are still bound by the terms of needing to give anybody who currently is in there notification within a timely manner that either they're staying or not staying. So we can certainly drag this out in a sense of making sure we
I'm
meet
not talking
the
about dragging
needs.
it out, because Jay is in contact with us every single day, sometimes more than once a day, but it's not like you're going to have to wait for 4 weeks to get an answer for stuff. I just feel like he watches all these meetings too, and I'm pretty sure he's going to...
So to your point, Mr. Chair, Jay has gone for a tour of the facility, and he
Which
has
he has told
also
me, yeah.
seen these materials, and we have had conversations kind of talking about how that looks in the end.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here.
Don't want to interrupt you, but
No.
if you
Yeah,
have
no, but
questions.
I think it's important to stop here because instead of going through the whole thing and then trying to come back, I agree with you 100%. And I would like to know the yellow, wait, where are we here?
I'll go right back to the
Go
first
back if
one.
you don't mind.
There we go.
Okay, so am I hearing correctly that the 9 yellow spots, if
Mm-hmm.
there's 9, are the ones that are going to be absorbed for future town use, but no one's going to occupy any of these 9?
Fair question. 3 of those 9 are currently occupied by staff.
Okay.
So the 2 underneath floor and map,
Yep.
that would be my office and the human resources
And
office.
that's what I thought. And then, so fair statement would be there would be 6 that are sitting idle, waiting for administration to determine whether or not they need the spaces.
That is correct.
Okay. And I would agree with you. I don't.
We
know
should have
why.
an analysis of...
We should have
Because
more
we're making
data.
money in the meantime.
Well, and I
people
agree with
actually
that.
doing productive things in the meantime.
I agree 100% that the goal is not that we wanted to wipe it out. This was as a concern that we needed to find a means to reserve space so that we don't do what just happened.
But if I may pick just one more. What happened, I think, was a product of a lot of different things, right? I think what you're doing right now is bringing a crystal clear system to the cultural center. And with a good system in place, I don't think what happened in the past will occur again. So, and you know, the gentleman who spoke earlier at public comment mentioned the human aspect of this. To me, that's a big deal. And I know it is to you too. You and I have had enough conversation that I know that that's exactly how you feel as well. So moving forward with a better system, and with speaking to other license holders in the building, they all say the same thing. We understand that we can be terminated at any point in time. They all understand that. So, you know, I think to the chair's point, a little more data collection, a little more exploration of what we're doing here. Maybe we only need 3 instead of 6 idle. I think we just need to continue the conversation.
And that's all I was saying, because I told you up front, we're not going to approve anything tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And if I could, I'm going to take the different approach from both of you gentlemen, because I'm the one who brought it up a few months ago, or whatever the hell it was. I never understood why administration in this building, meaning your office, wasn't in the old administration section of the building anyway. It doesn't make sense to put you where you are, in my opinion. But to go back to the point, which I think was the most important point that you made, especially when we think about some of the employees that are over there, this particular portion of the building can be locked and secured. Think about some of the people that are over there as our staff members. That, they should have a locked and secured area for their place of employment, for the records that they retain. I get that we may lose a few spots, a few studios. I'm not looking to push anybody out of a studio. Perhaps, we don't get a full, slot of requests in totality. 30-something rooms?
33 is what we have currently.
Yeah, and what are you going to, 26 or something?
It would be to 29.
29.
I believe
So
is
maybe
what
we
it
don't
would
even get 29, submittals. I don't know. But my point is, I think that particular block of offices is important for the town to reserve for the protection of the municipal aspect of that building.
You're not really disagreeing. What I'm saying is, you're talking about numbers, and I'm talking, and reallocation. I'm talking about what is our near and midterm need. I mean, give me some.
Oh, no, I get it, but
give me
if-
some idea of what they're going to be used
But
up.
my
because
point
just
is,
locking
if
them
we
doesn't
have.
mean anything to me.
Yeah, to me, if we leave 4 wide open for future use, I'm okay with that. I don't think we need to rent every space in the building. My opinion. I like having a secure area for the town staff, and again, especially with some of the departments that either are there or could potentially go there.
And by the way, that's exactly why I'm bringing this up, because we have to be able to settle on agreement of that to be able to get to the plan.
It's a great conversation.
Right.
It's really a great conversation, and I think, even though I went to middle school now,
I spent a lot of time in the office. Yeah.
I think I want to come over there tomorrow, and I want to take a look at what
Absolutely.
Pete's point is, because I didn't connect that. And that's a real good point, is that can be the secure part of the building, and that makes some sense to me. So I appreciate your input, Pete.
Memory serves, the assistant principal's office was in.
I know exactly where that is. I know exactly.
That was
I might
for-
avoid that room, actually, when I go tour it
Yeah,
again.
get PTSD myself thinking about it.
The one item is, with these floor plans, it was to take what I heard from you as a board, to take what I hear from administration, and to take what I feel is in the best interest of what we are trying to do here in the town and make it work. So that is why I said, okay, as much as it's uncomfortable, I need to be comfortable with it and make it work to the best of our ability.
Totally get it.
So-
Don't view this as a criticism.
Oh, no.
But elections matter. There's a different board, and there's a different town administrator, there's a different finance director, there's a lot of things. So we probably need to review what our priorities are relative to this to get to the conclusion that we all want to do. And so you're talking about square footage rentals and everything, all well and good, but what is our priority? And I think Pete's probably right. I mean, identifying the spot that can be locked down so that before we start spreading out into places that are not secure, we've got an area that we know for a fact that was designed to be locked up.
Absolutely. And so, looking at the second floor, no significant changes as we would anticipate. The shared studios remain shared, the singles remain single. The one item I did have a slide on, and that is the revenue, only because I do know it has already been said a few things tonight as far as taking it offline or not offline. What does that look like for an impact, especially as we start talking about revolving funds and making sure that we continue to obtain a studio rental rate structure that can meet the needs of what we are trying to sustain with the building, which is the out-the-door cost. As Shunlivy will tell you, it's $145,000 a year to open the doors. So can we generate enough consistent revenue to meet that expectation? And as a breakdown, just to give you the analysis, was that the lower level would be $850 a month. That is $10,200 a year. The first floor would generate about $64,800 a year. The second floor would be about $81,000, $900 a year, with an anticipated revenue stream of $156,900. Now, these are rough estimates. I do not want to be held to these dollar values exactly, but this is generally what we would see. That is an increase. Now, what that means is that if we were to remove the studios of the Creative Suite, there would be no financial impact at the end of the day as far as any loss of revenue, if we wanted to call it that. We would still be able to sustain, and that is solely because we're getting the lower level back online, which has been sat vacant since our lovely letterpress individual left. It has been just not making any money for us in the town of Harwich. So if we want to see that, we have a very minimal increase in studio rental rates at $25, and that is simply, we know utility costs are rising. We know that cost to keep the power and the lights on is rising significantly, and we need to maintain within that cost so that we can continue to meet those bills that come in on a daily occurrence. Lastly, we have just the RFP kind of guideline as far as what we're anticipating tonight is we're having our policy discussion, and we'll continue to be back until we get that. The anticipation was that we would be on the streets for March 1st. You would see that as a proposal, but that is a flexible date, as I mentioned earlier. I'm not bound by that date, but if it can be done by mid-March, we would be in a very good position as the town, knowing that we still do have some wiggle room. With that, like I alluded to earlier, we have a few changes within the license agreement language that we'll certainly want to focus on, which is instead of a 30-day notice clause by the town of Harwich for vacancy or termination, we'd be looking to do a 60-day notice, meaning the town of Harwich would be required to provide a 60-day notice to anybody that we're looking to terminate, but in return, the 30-day clause through the artist or creative remains the same. So they would still provide us 30 days if they had intent of leaving. The addition of the use policy language, inclusive of that hazardous material, open studios, their commitment level and involvement as far as those hours go that they're allowed to be in. And then one additional change in the payment language. The current language does not permit any use for a late fee or any ramifications if fees are not paid for within a timely manner. So there is additional language to add a $25 late fee if it's not done within 15 days. So they have a 15-day grace period, so to speak. So rent is due on the 1st. They have until the 15th to get the rent in. Any time after that, it is considered late, and they would be subject to termination if it meets 30 days. So there is a clause that would allow the town in future years, if they get into a situation where someone is not paying and more squatting in the facility, there is language regarding payment which was not included in prior license agreements. And with that, I will certainly welcome
Well,
further
this is not
feedback.
the end, so
It is not.
I don't want to do a sleepover, so it may be that we do the presentation and bring this back for further discussion. But
Yeah, I'll have a few questions, but it can certainly wait till the next time.
you guys good with that? I mean, you've heard our concerns. and
Absolutely.
I'll bring them to Jay and see what he has to say, because, again, at the end of the day, it's a policy decision that gets implemented here and then gets sent out, and we need to be able to understand even what we want to do at the board level.
Chair, could I just add
Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
On your leases, your RFP, they're 3 years. I saw your rate increase was only for a year, is that correct?
So the license agreements for every year. So we would have to come back to the board year over year if we wanted to do it. So it would be a set for a 3-year rate increase. It would be for that 3 years, unless we deem otherwise. So that $25 a month increase that we're proposing for the next set of rates would be for those 3 years.
Just so you're proposing a $25 increase for 3 years, and that, I did a little figuring, that comes out to about, over 3 years, like 3.3% for the smaller units and 2.08% for the larger units. That kind of ties in with my other question. I haven't seen the revolving funds. I see what you've got for revenue. I'd like to see what your costs are from the revolving fund, and then we can better gauge. I mean, I don't think with inflation and fuel you brought up about utility use, over 3 years, that 2.8% is going to cover it. So hopefully, next year you get your rate increase. Hopefully we could revisit that, because I don't think costs are going to stay at 3 or 2%.
Part of the problem that you folks are having with this discussion is, to the extent that there's a municipal component in this, we do not make municipal, we're not considering them carrying the freight. So
Right.
if they occupy the building, it's not as if we're going to charge $50 per office worker for them to be in a room.
So correct. There's several structures that need to be identified when we're talking about municipal space, and there's multiple departments that also utilize our space to operate their programs, which just call it revenue share. There's nothing going back into the pot to say. So there's a lot of factors when you talk about the revolving fund. I do want to make it very clear it's not my revolving fund. The Cultural Affairs Department is a program department that receives $0 funding. The revolving fund is managed through facilities management, I should say, because they're the ones who pay water and everything like that. There are several things that we collaborate on to make sure things are staying in line. Items in the facility, if it becomes to maintenance, equipment, or something that's physically for the building structure, we ensure we communicate on that manner. I do know that accounting is obviously spending an extensive amount of time on researching revolvings and cleaning up things and getting items together. So I am sure it's not the last time you will talk about the revolving account or get that information. I can speak to what Sean Libby has informed me multiple times, is that it takes $145,000 a year to open our doors. And that is with confidence.
And that's my point, who bears that? And we want Jen to live through town meeting.
Me too.
She has promised, and I have actually requested a number of times for a deeper dive into what it is we can count on as being part of our regular operating expenses with revenues associated with it, and what is routinely something that we'd want in a revolving fund. That's partly policy, but it's partly, she'd have to unravel everything.
Absolutely.
There is no time whatsoever to do that in this fiscal year. I mean, but I think you've been hearing from this board through this past year that we have an interest in figuring out, do we really need that much in the way, not that we would get rid of all revolving funds, but what's the right number and what should go into regular operating? That's not an endeavor that she can go through without us going to her funeral at the end of it.
Right, and we don't want that. And that is certainly, I think, the biggest piece is that Sean and I have collaborated very well for the time that I've been here, and we continue to do that, and we are all about a solution. So we are on board, we are 100%. I actually told Jen personally myself on Friday, I am all in, let's figure it out, let's do it right, because that's what this is about. This is not about blowing it up and making it a big problem. It is about, let's get to the better part of the solution, but for the better part of the town at the same time. That's what we're all looking for.
Okay, so again, this is a process, because we're not even going to be done this year with this. It's going to be a conversation for next year, too.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Great,
Appreciate
thank you.
the presentation.
Good job, Karen.
However, Mark, you don't have to fall off that thought process yet, because we haven't voted on anything, so
Okay.
there's still an opportunity to look at fees.
Thank you.
And the roof.
Yeah.
Before we even, go ahead, Eric. Before we even start with this, I have to make a statement overall about what we're looking to do tonight. We're not looking to find someone to blame. We're not looking for somebody to pin the responsibility on. We are looking for figuring out, and we are all committed up here to doing this, how we can provide at least as robust a program as we had last year, perhaps even better, and how that might look. But having said that, Eric is here as a program manager, but we do not have on the agenda Rec and Youth, and I would like to get an opinion from them too on a cross-posting for them, because they are involved in this inextricably. We take advice from them. So what we're going to confine ourselves to is Eric can talk to what he is thinking that the plan would be, and I expect the parents to talk not about people, but about, okay, this is what I expect to see to happen in the spring and fall and summer. I expect this magnitude and these types of programs, and how do we get there? So we're going to focus on that.
Yep. All right, well, thanks for having me. So what sparked all of this, our great program specialist had his last day with us on Saturday, John Losey. He did a great job expanding programming when it was needed, it was called for. We expanded our programs, I think almost 75% on top of where we were. All age groups, all activities. And, you know, unfortunately, we lost him Saturday. He went back to his native Florida. But our message to the town is we're moving full steam ahead. There's no, you know, everything that's been implemented by our department since he got here is going to keep going. Nothing's being canceled, nothing's being called off. We are right in the middle of also hiring to fulfill John's position. We have had two great candidates interview already. We're taking applications till the end of the month. We're looking for the same type of energy, creativity, flexibility, and just the way we want the person to be able to work with kids, have good planning skills, everything that we had with our last program specialist, and hopefully even more. So I don't have as many slides as Kara, but
That may be a good thing.
okay. And I won't go through every program,
If
but
you use
right,
some of ours, feel free.
right now, we're right in the middle of winter programming. So some of our programs are finishing up for the winter, some are still going very strong. We are covered for everything, and we are bridging that gap, until we have another person in place. I set up and started to ref a game today for basketball. I will step in, other people will step in. We have a small department, but we're going to make it work going forward. As you can see, we have all our basketball programs, some that have finished up this past weekend, not because John left, but that was this date to finish. Our travel league is still going strong, at least for another month. All refs are set. Scoreboard operators, uniforms, medals, trophies, home sites, gym monitors, everything is all set. So that gets us through our winter programs as far as basketball goes. We have a bunch of other winter programs and a wide variety, indoor soccer, gymnastics, field hockey, volleyball. Some of these...
Let me interrupt you a second, because
Sure.
I see people taking pictures of the screen.
Oh.
This is all part of our packet, and it's readily accessible if you just
Yeah,
log
you can
in
print it out,
to
yeah.
the town site for the selectmen's meeting for this night, and this will be in that.
And then there's some that are just going to be starting up in a few weeks, including gymnastics and wrestling, which is a new one for us, youth wrestling. We have instructors for a lot of these. Some of them are run by us. Like I said, we do have people in place to run these programs as scheduled throughout the winter. So nothing is changing, nothing's being canceled. Our daily after-school program is running strong. We have a great after-school director, supervisor, and an after-school staff that is just awesome every day with the kids.
Advance that slide.
What's that?
Advance that slide.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
There we go.
Oh, yeah, now we can read it much
There we
better.
go.
A little smaller font.
Well, moving on to winter and senior programming, adult and senior programming, that's also going as scheduled, including the indoor pickleball, night pickleball, our over 55 basketball. We have a new over 75 basketball. We have a new Cape Adult League basketball. Between our staff, subcontracted people for different programs, and point people for adult programs, we are completely covered throughout the winter and the spring for these programs. Speaking of spring, this is just, these are all the programs that we have put together, myself and John and my staff, that we were looking at for this coming spring. This is just what we started with. This is everything we did last year and more, including adult programs, senior programs, youth programs, every T-ball you could think of, Farm League, which is another version of T-ball, travel softball. We plan to run it all. We will step in as a team and fill in where we have to fill in. Hoping by then we will have a new qualified program specialist that will be trained and acclimating to the program and kind of putting their own spin on things, whatever they can add to it. Someone we interviewed today has a heavy influence in things like drama, arts and crafts. That's something we really want to hit on going forward, so it's not all athletic heavy. So that's...
I think we need to hear from the parents about what the thrust is of what they would like to see the programs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We still have an HJT out there that does some of that
Oh,
kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. We just try to hit all different interests.
Oh, I get it,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
when you're triaging, you normally look at the most urgent needs first and you start looking at tertiary things after you've filled those.
Yeah, okay. As far as the summer goes, we're going to have all standard beach operations for the summer. The really good news that we have as of Friday is we found an alternative site for our summer camp program, which will allow us to at least double our registration numbers. I met with school officials on Friday. We're going to move the camp to the Harwich Elementary School for the summer. It just gives a lot more space in a self-contained building. The community center is an awesome place, but there's public everywhere. So we have to up our staff ratio. Every time a kid uses the restroom, we have to walk them there. All things like that because public can come in and out of the building.
Before you get past that subject, to what number?
Right now,
Percentages don't matter to me, because if you go from 1 to 2, that's a 100% change.
we were at 35, we're going to 60 for this summer, with plans of expanding even more next summer. With more registrants, we need more staff.
Yeah, and not to steal the thunder from any of the parents, this is everything happens in a context. The why is gone. So that just blew out of the water.
We don't know that for sure yet.
We kind of know that.
Okay.
So the question then becomes, how can we become more robust? Because there's a lot of kids. We're talking about summer residents. Our combined town census by the time the summer happens is about 43,000 people. And some of them have kids. So we're 40 to 60 is nice, but we also need to work really hard at making that number even higher.
And we will, yep. This includes our summer programs. We plan to have our full slate of swim lessons, tennis lessons, other summer ball activities, lacrosse clinics, field hockey clinics, everything, to keep kids busy during the summer, aside from the beaches.
And you are good to go with the process? That involves querying as quickly as possible, parent volunteers, those people can deploy very quickly?
Yep. One of the other things that parents made very clear is they want to know what's happening as early as possible, and they want to get signed up as early as possible. The MyRec system, registration system, has been great for us. There's a lot of monitoring that goes along with it, but it enables us to give usability to the registrants and their parents. Social media posts, we plan to continue to be heavy on that, especially with the Instagram pages and flyers being put out as soon as possible. Like I said, camp registration's already been opened. Swim lessons are going to be open within the next 2 weeks. So we're trying to really get a jump on everything now so people can plan out into the future as requested. So, in conclusion, we're losing John. We've expanded greatly. We want to expand more. So we're going to keep pushing forward to meet as many needs as possible within the town, and the youth, the adults, the seniors, all recreation needs.
Again, from my perspective, we're not going to conclude anything tonight, but I do want to hear, you've made the presentation, I want to hear from parents to see if there's something we haven't thought of, or something they really want to focus on, because we need to synthesize all that pretty quickly.
Makes sense.
You can sit over here. This isn't going to be a question and answer time.
Good evening, Joyce McIntyre from West Harwich. I'm definitely wearing my mom hat tonight, so thank you, Eric, for the presentation. I want to take our poets left, but a page from their book about, you've spoken about many important things this evening, and here we are talking about people, and most importantly, kids, right? But wearing my mom hat, I have two very practical questions. Start with the first one.
Again, he can't necessarily.
Okay, I'll just put it out there. I'll put it out. I'll put it out because I think it's important. Sure. So he's not going to respond. Eric,
No, because
but thank you,
I'm
Eric, for the
compiling it
presentation.
right now to try to figure out what we need to do to address everything next week.
A real practical question for the ongoing sports teams, how the communication has happened in the past. There are group chats that all the parents are on, that, there's a boys basketball game, they're going to Eastham Wednesday night. It's been a snowy winter, right? What happens, like the game's canceled, what time to be there to warm up, the reminder, a question of how is that going to go on, and specifically who is responsible for that, and when we would expect that communication. That's the first question.
Got it.
The second one is, like parents, we live in imperfection. We're embracing imperfection. It's the only way we're surviving, right? Raising kids is imperfection. So we're all in this together, presuming that there will be imperfections. How should that be communicated in an effort to, you're only a 9-year-old kid in Harwich in the spring of 2026 once, right? So we know things are going to go sideways. Again, we're in this together. How is that how can we sort of report in real time, hey, man, you know, the game was canceled, we didn't hear about it. Like, you know, we don't have the key to get the ball. I mean, you know, you understand what I'm spitballing here. How can that be, who do we communicate that with in a, again, we're in this together kind of way, but also in a documented, transparent way so that that is not perpetuated? Those would be my two questions. And I know there's lots of other community wisdom here to reach in as well as online.
And oddly that you talk about imperfection, we're trying to make sure that we do as much as we can for as long as we can.
Yes.
So we're not going to make this perfect.
Yeah.
But it's clear that everybody's got concerns right now and that the parents have some expectations. That's why I really would like to hear what those are. Don't be shy. It could be what are you afraid of losing. That's also something you could opine to. And Jamie, we may need to see the screen because I have a feeling that there's some people on there.
Good evening. I'm Christine McDowell from Harwich, and I just want to thank Eric. Actually, I emailed him this morning, probably 7:20, and within minutes he called me. I'm coaching a team currently, the grade 3-4 girls basketball team, and just thinking about what we need. There are a lot of parents who are interested in being involved in helping, and John is amazing, was amazing, and from day one, I told him, you can't do this alone, like call us in. But for years, we weren't really involved, many of us, so we didn't really know where to start, but going forward, let's figure out how to get these parents who are interested or maybe interested together and come up with a plan about who can coach what. And included in that is an immediate query, which actually I was queried after I brought it up to John a couple weeks into the season to say, are you going to query all? I mean, I'm a teacher, so I'm queried all the time. But still, it was not done. And
that's why I brought it up.
yes, thanks. And it since has. But also some training, you know, meet with us. And even if we have coached before, like some sort of meeting, gathering, one-on-one groups, give us resources, some training, that would be really, really helpful.
Great, thank you. Anyone else in the audience? And go over to the screen too. Anybody want to raise their virtual hand out there?
That's a real hand.
That is a real hand. I saw that.
Hi, my name is Leah Mercurio, East Harwich. I am here as the chair for the Rec and Youth Commission. I briefly just want to speak. 2 years ago, we were confronted by, I won't use the word confronted, but a large group of parents came to our meeting and they stated some concerns, lack of programming, communication, so on and so forth. Those were discussed, those were brought to the director. The parents group came to us with a program that they were interested in seeing, a timeline, if you will. Eric was able to hire John, and the timeline was met beyond expectation. Speaking for the board, we do not want to have that group of parents return in the same manner that they came to us before. We would like to see everything with the rec department continue as it was and as it has been for the last, I think it's 17 months we've had John, about 17 months. We've seen programs expand. We've seen more people coming in from other towns, which is one of the biggest concerns that parents had was, I have to go to Brewster, I have to go to Dennis, I have to go here and there. So all in all, for the last 17 years, we've been very happy with the change, and we would like to see that continue in any way possible, that can happen, whether we expand volunteer opportunities or if there's another area of hiring that needs to happen or anything like that. We as the board support the rec department moving forward and going up and up.
And that would be in the abstract, so I guess my question is, in the here and now, how quickly do you think you folks could get together to review his proposed plan and then get back to us in a meeting? Because we're looking for your direction about what you would recommend. He's come up with a plan, and we typically have recommendations from our advisory committees about what it is they think needs to change, or it's all great, whatever that is.
Right,
but
of course.
you have to meet first in order for that to happen. So
Yes.
what do you think that timeline looks like?
So our next meeting is it the 24th of February? I
You don't
believe.
have to be bound by that, by the way. You can call it a special meeting.
Yeah, so if you would, you know the gentleman on the board, on the committee, so I won't speak for all of them without discussing, but I could certainly send an email out requesting if everyone is available for a specific time, and if I can do it this week and get back to
You
you
put it
by
on
next
us.
Monday.
We view this as all hands on deck.
Sure,
It's a
yeah.
real important discussion for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can do everything in my power to try to pull something together this week and get back to you by next Monday at most the following week.
Okay.
I'm pretty consistent. I'd like to move things quickly, so you should hear
We're all
from me.
viewing this as a triage for something that we don't want to see become a problem, a big problem.
Exactly. We feel that with the parents' concerns that we had prior, we don't
We saw
want to
some of them
backtrack.
here, by the way.
Yeah, I think we all kind of felt it. So we don't want to backtrack in any way, shape, or form. So like I said, I will reach out to the committee, and we will try to get some sort of special meeting together to discuss the timeline and the proposed plan. We have all seen the proposed plan. Actually, I'm going to retract that. I will double check that we've all seen the proposed plan, and then we can go from there.
Anybody on the board want to say anything? I think that's a plan.
Okay.
I just wanted you to understand the urgency of this. If we wait
absolutely.
for that meeting and we wait for the next meeting, we're already talking about summer.
Yes. Oh, we're into fall by then, as far as I'm
Yeah, so-
concerned.
Comes fast.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody, as someone approaches the podium, is there anybody who wants to raise their virtual hand there? I've mentioned this before. Hi. and you
Hi,
are?
Andrea Driscoll from Harwich. Just kind of leading off what Leah had said. Yes. I think what John has brought to the town of Harwich is fantastic, and I don't want to lower that bar that's been set. Previous to John, you'd show up for a program and nothing would be there. They'd say, flip the lights, and you'd have all flat basketballs. Now when you show up, the basketball hoop is set to the right height, because you need a different height depending on which age child is out there. Soccer goals are set, the balls are out there, the flags are there. So I just want to keep that going, because not only are we now running programs in Harwich, they're being run well. So I think we need to keep that going.
And we are committed to that too, even if Pete has to be a coach.
He'd be very good. Thank you.
All right, I think we've gotten as much out of this as we can, but the plan is to see if we can get Wrecking Youth to review this and then come back to us as quickly as they possibly can so that we can bless the plan and start moving on it.
Super simple, mechanical, again, really practical. Again, I appreciate the plan. If, as these programs are going, names, phone numbers, super helpful in that plan. I appreciate you saying the staff, but like, you know, who am I emailing? Or who?
I have you down for communication twice here.
I'm here to serve on behalf of the kids, but, you know, we understand municipal government and everything that's going on here, but this is like as practical and granular as we can be, I think is going to be to the key to like what Andrea is saying in terms of keeping what has grown here blossomed in the last 17 months. So thank you.
Okay, so that's good. That's as far as we're getting there. I appreciate the effort. And anything we can do on our end, I'm going to examine the timeline for Tories and anything we can do to make sure that is not an impediment, we'll do too, to help you on the town side.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, anything else from anybody? Thanks for being here. Thanks, everybody, for being here. It is important to us. We're committed to making sure that the kids have some outlet to go to. It's always been something that Harwich has been good at, and we don't want to lose this, but again, 42,000 people in the summer, so you gotta recognize there's a whole bunch of people that want to do something. So, okay.
Revolving fund.
Move on to the next.
We're not going to discuss the revolving fund with you as much as just
Oh, yeah,
discuss the revolving fund,
period.
period.
Oh, I can
Yes,
go,
you
okay.
can go.
Okay. Gotcha.
But let the front desk know where your whereabouts are.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, dear.
It's a marvel we even have this right now, so.
Okay, so kind of on sticking to the same topic, and to kind of go back to the conversation about, it's a hot topic, these revolving funds, right, here. And eventually we'll get to the bottom of all of this. There was a bit of an emergent situation that led to the revolving fund becoming the fire of the moment for me to kind of address an issue that came up. So I want to talk to that a little bit, talk about solutions and how we move forward so that all these wonderful things continue to happen. So revolving funds, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, it's one of those things that it's invaluable when it's managed well and it's really bad when it's not. Why they matter? They're self-supporting programs. Revenue typically funds the fees from the programs typically support the costs of the programs. It's a reduced general fund impact. It gives much more flexibility for the departments to respond, and it's a user-based cost recovery. Just for a little bit of knowledge on that. So the statutory requirements or the legal requirements, annual town meeting spending limit is required. That is a hard legal ceiling, non-negotiable, right? Spending beyond the cap is absolutely not permitted. And the cash balance in the account does not override that authorization. So if you've received extra revenue in that year, that doesn't mean that you can forego that cap that was placed on it. There is a mechanism through which you have to go through in order to increase that limit in order to utilize any additional cash. And negative cash balances are not are prohibited. Sorry, it's been a long day.
No worries.
So this particular recreation revolving fund, to give you a little bit of history, I had to go back, kind of pull the history of it, bring it back forward to kind of gain this understanding of what has happened and what's going on. So it was established in fiscal year 2011 under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, and it was converted from a prior Rec MGL, Chapter 44, Section 53D. Both revolving funds, different statutory structures. It was funded by recreation and youth program fees. Its authorized purpose was limited to recreation and youth programs, and town meeting set an annual spending limit every year since then. In fiscal year 22, an important note to remember is that town meeting voted to change the authorization from Recreation Director and Youth Commission to the town administrator or their designee as the authorizer of expenditures. So this is just the beautiful full language of Massachusetts General Law, Section 53E and a half. If you want some help falling asleep tonight, you can read through it. I've highlighted a couple of sections that came out way smaller on that screen than I thought it was going to, so forgive me. But that top highlighted section says, expenditures shall not be made or liabilities incurred from any such revolving fund in excess of the balance of the fund or in excess of the total authorized expenditures from such fund, which kind of I touched on in my note previously. And then that second section says, the town shall, on or before July 1st of each year, vote on the limit of the total amount that may be expended from the revolving fund established under the section in any fiscal year. The limit on the amount, pardon me, it popped up on my screen here. The limit on the amount that may be spent from a revolving fund may be increased with the approval of the Select Board and Finance Committee in town, which is what we're going to talk about here momentarily. So I did a historical review. I went back to, again, fiscal year 2011 is when the 53E.5 was established for this recreation revolving fund. I went back to, actually traced the accounts back to 2000, but I'm going to focus a little bit on this fiscal year 13 to 25 period because it matters. So spending in that 12 years exceeded its authorized cap in 8 of those 12 years with no action prior to now. Why we're here today is because they hit their town meeting limit and I ceased to allow them to expend any additional funds. Again, the management that's supposed to take place on, how these things are built and structured. So again, not drawing any conclusions about where things happened or how they happened or with whom they happened, because it is my role to make sure that we're following the law. We reached a point where we were about to breach the law, and I put in place this quick, let's figure out how to fix this problem. There was one year, it was 2018, that ended with a negative cash balance. That is also statutorily prohibited. It was noted in some audit notes when I looked back. So again, this is just things that were not properly managed over time. Cap increases were in early years, and then they became very reactive or just not at all in the last 7 years. So you can, I've put together a little illustration. You come to expect that from me, right? Where you can see that red line is the town meeting limit, right? And you can see in the last 7 years, it's just a straight flat line. So you've all talked about, the demands that have been made of, let's increase this programming, and you can see that happening, right? But the limits upon their spending were never increased in concert with that, right? So essentially, you're out of statutory compliance while that's happening, and it should not have been allowed to happen that way. So number 8, as you can see, that's right now. We hit the limit, and I said stop. So this, again, is not about any agenda. It's just simply that we need to right this wrong and move forward in a direction where if and when we do run into these things, we utilize the proper mechanism to address them. So the impact of the past practice here is that it's created for the town an increased audit and compliance risk. It's representative very much so of weak internal controls, and spending decisions were made without legal authority. Governance changes that were adopted in fiscal year 23 to address this by changing the authorization from the department head to the town administrator or their designee appears to never have taken place, at least in my quick research. Expenditures are still coming through the department head, not any town administrator or town administration designee. Expenditures are not clearly tied to the authorized purpose, and I will say to this, the language, it may be a situation where the language that was originally used to establish what those approved expenditures are was not clear enough. So I'm not saying that things were being spent that shouldn't have been spent. It's just that we need to bridge that gap. Either the language needs to reflect what is acceptable to be spent, or what's spent needs to be very clearly what we designate it to be. So there were, the approved language was recreation and youth programs, and some spending exists within the history that included facility repairs and maintenance. So the current status is that the fiscal year 26 town meeting approved spending limit has already been fully expended, which again, with the growing program and the chart I showed you, makes absolute sense that it has been reached already at this time of year. The account has been placed on hold to prevent further statutory violation. and additional spending requires a formal approval process. The requested action today is that we're requesting that you approve an increase for fiscal year 26 spending limit to $400,000 from the town meeting approved $175,000. We would use the same baseline for fiscal year 27, and we would align the authorization with the current program scale. So I put together here for you a little bit. So the blue boxes are obviously actual program spending, and fiscal year 26 is a projection, fiscal year 27 is a projection based on a 5-year trend line that I've drawn, and it puts you right, fiscal 27, right at that $400,000 mark. And this is kind of taking historical analysis and pulling it forward, but Eric also provided some language about the expansion of the program that also lends itself financially to supporting the increase to that level. And from what I've heard tonight, it would additionally support some growth in the program from where it is currently. So the benefits of this approach will be that it restores the ability for the revolving fund, the recreation revolving fund, to operate legally. It improves transparency and planning. It reduces future compliance risk, and it supports sustainable program delivery. Going forward, we need to monitor the spending versus the cap and be proactive in communication between responsible departments and finance and accounting. These are one of those things that I don't expect to be the person who catches them. I expect to hear about we're approaching them before we get to this. So we need to better that communication and so these things don't become an issue that we have to put out a fire. There are munis tools that can be implemented that systematically control some of these limit overspends that are not in place in Harwich. That will take time, but I'm going to work on building some infrastructure in munis so that when the entry of an invoice would create a violation, it's refused. So it stops it before it starts. We need advanced planning for cap changes before the limit is breached. I alluded to that already. Currently, there is no spending in the revolving fund in anticipation of any approval. So what that means is currently Recreation is paying for any needed expenditures out of their general fund operating budget up to and until this approval process takes place. And I would also suggest going forward, we require, I would assume anyway, that when the town meeting in 2022 passed that, the person who was authorized to authorize expenditures in this fund to be changed from the department head to the town administrator, that their intent was to do so. And seeing that really hasn't been the case, I would suggest that we require compliance with that town meeting vote, or undo it with another town meeting vote that's approved by in the way that it should. But until then, nothing short of complying with that is acceptable. So you have a form in your packet that I put together, basically that outlines that in order for this spending cap to be raised, and this has been confirmed, vetted through, including town council, Tony reached out to just to validate, make sure that we were on solid footing, that both the select board and the FENCom have to approve this cap raise in order for it to take place. So this form would allow, I filled it out in completion, other than the signature lines that you would sign. If you sign approving this cap increase to $400,000, and I will also be going before the FENCom on Thursday of this week. If they then also agree, if it is both of your will to raise that limit to $400,000, then we could continue paying for programming through the Recreation Revolving Fund at that time, but it's not, it can't go backwards, right? So from that day forward, we can allow spending again in the recreation revolving fund. So if not, then we have a bigger discussion.
Do we absolutely need that magnitude to fix this year? Because I also noticed that the second part of this discussion is not being hit. The revenues are already below the expenditure level, according to the blue line.
Right, but they do, revolving
I know
funds
that
allow
at a point in
carry-forward
time,
funds, right? So if there's cash left in a prior year, it carries forward to the current year. So at present, they're actually net positive cash.
That doesn't work
$90,000.
if it keeps happening, though.
Correct, I mean, it's not sustainable,
Yeah.
correct.
Board.
Go ahead.
Oh, please.
He'll take all your ideas.
I was just going to say, I assume we're going to be looking for a motion.
First, we can have the conversation.
Understood.
What you want to do.
That's why I went to Pete.
Mr. Chair, thanks. So a couple quick questions, and you answered one of them, but I want to expand on it. So my question was, existing balance plus anticipated revenue, you anticipate covering the 400,000?
Yes.
Or the rec department anticipates that. How is that monitored and gauged throughout this fiscal year to make sure anticipated revenues are hitting those targets? Because clearly we are, well, you said we're actually net positive, so we're okay there, but how do we monitor it to make sure?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure how historically it's been done here. This is one of the things I talked about earlier about, kind of bridging that gap between, and the silos that exist between department heads, accounting. Certainly there is a responsibility in my world, at least that I own, where I look at, and that's exactly how I found this, I look at these things pretty regularly to look for anything that is outside of a parameter. And this one, as soon as it showed up outside of a parameter, I've built spreadsheets that flash to me, problem, there's something to look at here. And so certainly some of that rests with me, but like I said, I think some of it needs to rest with the department head of staying on top of, where those things are. My office does send out reporting on a monthly basis that gives them their balances on their accounts, where they are, what activity has taken place in that time frame. Those are, there's going to be some upcoming discussions about the ownership of that and the need for those to be validated, not just received and said, oh, I got it, but to be validated and say, yes, I agree with this activity, it is correct, which should trigger, something that says we've overexpended this level. And I think I'll go back to something I said earlier too, is I think there's been not a great deal of education for some of these people that are running these financial products about the financial requirements of them, right? So I think an education gap exists where I want to help bridge that gap too, where they all understand a little bit more about what's incumbent upon them as a department head to keep track of this and come to me with, so that I'm not the one finding this after the fact.
No, I agree with that. Realistic, the Munis tools, is that something for next fiscal year you think could be implemented? And I don't mean the start of the fiscal year, at some point during the fiscal year?
Some of it I can do pretty quickly. So I'm certainly going to put in place, the difficult part is that the way that accounts were set up in your particular iteration, I say it's mine now.
Certainly not mine.
I reluctantly own it. It needs a little bit of finessing in order to work in the way that Munis intended it to. I used to joke in my prior role that, with Munis we had bought a spaceship and we were using it to drive back and forth to Hyannis. I think that largely in some of the ways that Munis has been utilized here is not up to its fullest potential. So getting there is going to take time, but I think there are some Band-Aids I can put in place in the meantime.
So we're going from Harwich Center to Harwich Port?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. And I may be reading too much into this, Mr. Chair, but in the documentation that the finance director provided, and it's page 187 of our packet, it states pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Sections 53E and a half, and I'll raise you E and a half, that the Select Board and Finance Committee acting jointly. So does acting jointly mean we're actually together, or just?
It does not.
Does not?
It does
But
not.
we both have to agree.
Okay,
civilly.
perfect. That's all I needed to
You
know.
have to vote
Yep,
and agree.
perfect,
We did clarify that.
beautiful.
Well, I don't mean to be Scrooge here, but and I recognize the kids, and I recognize the situation they're in. I have been spending the last 8 years saying, I don't think there's any real handle on this. I'm really afraid that something's going to come up. And I can tell you, there's a bunch of people on the Finance Committee that feel that way, is that we have an over-reliance on revolving funds, and that the magnitude of them should be at least partially put into the budget when we have like experiential data that shows 4 or 5 years of receipts, 4 or 5 years of expenditures, and what you're really looking to do is fund volatility, not to fund entire programs. Having said that, I'm just saying I'm not sure what the outcome is going to be with FinCom, because they're pretty hostile revolving funds themselves right now.
No, and believe me, I've heard that argument.
I looked at last year's report, and I have to say that five out of the 7 programs that have revolving funds never once mentioned that they had a cap. They all talked about, well, we need this because everybody loves us and everybody wants to do this and everybody sees that. They're missing the point. Town meetings set a limit, and somebody should have been looking at that. Certainly wasn't you, but I mean, that's the volatility we've had with the finance directors too. We've just had absolutely no guidance, and it's brought us to a place that's really sad. I mean, we shouldn't be having this discussion in any real world.
Sure.
Revolving funds really shouldn't wind up controlling themselves.
No.
And that's kind of my feelings on the subject. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chair. A question. Since you've discovered that this was something in the town meeting of 2022, that the administrator or his designee will approve all the revolving funds, is this something that you're going to intend to implement from this point forward until maybe something could be changed at a later date if?
I think town meeting dictated that we
No.
have to.
Right, no, I understand that, but apparently, obviously, it hadn't been done. So by finding this, are you going to start enforcing it for the revolving funds? And then at a later date, if something should be changed at town meeting, do you follow where I'm going with all this?
Yes, and to the best of my ability, the answer to that is yes.
Okay,
And
good. Thank
the only
you.
thing I could surmise, and again, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to speak to, is the language did say to the town administrator or their designee.
Right.
And I would assume that the reason that town meeting made that decision, whoever brought it forward, was that they wanted to move it away from the department head. But if the town administrator at the time made their designee the department head, then, but there's no documentation I found that states who that designee was.
Exactly my point.
Right.
So, but I can't imagine, even if it did happen that way, that that's what town meeting intended.
Right.
So the answer is yes, we should absolutely be following what town meeting dictated as the rule. Not sure Jay's gonna love all those signatures, but,
Well,
you
until
know.
something can
It's
be
called
put in.
designee.
Yeah, right?
But, or until something, maybe you'll come up with a better plan,
Yeah,
but just for this point forward, we understand that this is what's been put in place.
I think it's what needs to be.
Thank you. That's where I was going.
And whether he does, or whether he doesn't, or whether he did, or whether he didn't, I've unfortunately been here since the early 2000s, not in this seat particularly, but the discussion at that time when we launched this was, oh no, we're not going to be talking about personnel. This is loaded with personnel costs. We're only talking about equipment and the volatility that if we have 5 teams this year versus 7 teams next year, we have the capacity and elasticity to be able to cover that. At some point, we need to have a much deeper discussion about why we're doing it and how we want to do it.
Yes. And if I may, Mr. Chair, like again, as a tool, I hate that revolving funds have such a sour connotation here, because as a tool, they're actually phenomenal from a municipal municipal finance standpoint, when they're managed well. And there has been a bit of a revolving door in my position prior to me. Hopefully that's over, and, we can start to set some of these stakes in the ground and not have those problems going forward. But it's going to be it's probably going to get harder before it gets easier.
Yeah, I'm not going to beat this to death, but everybody who sat in that chair for the last 7 years, is like, oh yeah, we've audited it. It's under control. There's no question that everything's fine. Obviously, it wasn't. So, somebody want to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve an increase of the Rec and Youth Department's FY26 revolving fund spending limit from $175,000 to $400,000, effective immediately.
Second.
And that would be subject to the ultimate approval of the Finance Committee.
Correct.
That was your motion, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Further discussion? Okay. I'm going to poll because of the magnitude of this thing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. I'm a no. Just to put it on the record that this is not something that's acceptable.
Understood.
Okay?
Now, did you want us to sign this? Or?
Yes, I do. I mean, again, the kids matter more to me than the money does. But somebody's got to make a stand somewhere about how this could have happened. Okay, well, thank you. That's why we have you here.
Thank you, Jen.
You've
Thank
done
you very
more
much.
exceptional work. These questions have been out there for 6-7 years, and you've solved them in 6-7 weeks. So, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so moving along. Verizon could have built an entire network for the amount of time that we've had them sitting here. I'm going to punt on the Affordable Housing Trust action, except to say that you have taken the vote on the language, and you may want to just say that for the town meeting article, that we've reached peace in our time.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Chair. We, Affordable Housing Trust met today, and we crafted some language, and the language that we crafted revolved around a potential bylaw change of how the trust is populated, and the trust voted 5-0 in favor. It will now come to the Select Board next Tuesday night, I believe.
Yeah.
Right? Next Tuesday night, for a vote of the Select Board, and then hopefully make it to town meeting floor this year. I will give you this, Mr. Chair, since we're going to punt. That can get in the packet for next week.
Okay.
And that'll show the funds that have been dispersed by the trust over the last several weeks.
Great.
And then I can speak to them all.
And I will note before we actually move on that the language, if you folks remember, you had me trying to talk with Brendan about an agreement area that has to do with the town administrator being ex officio and then 5 members that are appointed by us. It's identical. We reached that agreement a couple of months ago, and what they just approved is exactly what we were proposing on our side. So it shouldn't be a heavy lift when we have it.
Thank you.
And by the way, people are wondering why I'm signing this, because we operate corporately.
Okay.
The vote was 4-1 to approve, and I'm signing it because the board voted to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Whatever you'd feel more, at this point in time, you probably want to lie down, but you can sit down or go to the podium.
I'll sit here, I guess.
Sure.
Good evening. My name is Randy Doyle. I'm the lead engineer for outside plant engineering for Verizon for Southeast Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And I am here because I made a mistake. We were supposed to get a official right-of-way to put some conduit in the ground, and we placed it prior to getting that official right-of-way sign-off from the town. It was human error totally on my part. Basically, what happened was we are putting fiber optics in select areas of Harwich under a mandate from the Massachusetts Broadband Institute, which identified some local homes that were underserved for broadband services. and we were contracted by the state to provide those services. Approximately about 12 homes, and in scattered areas of the town. One of my vendors had a job in hand that required a small amount of conduit that we did have the rights for, and they called saying, we're trying to schedule our work. This is only going to take us a couple of hours. Do you have any other work in town? And I looked at my job spreadsheet, and I misread one of my lines. I was looking at another job that we had approval for, but I gave them approval to place this conduit that we didn't have approval for. I did say that you need to make sure that you put door hangers out at all the residents' homes that you're going to bypass, so that at least they were notified in advance before you do that, which they did. We never got any calls from anybody with any concerns, but that's the Reader's Digest version of what happened, and mea culpa.
Well, first of all, it's refreshing to have somebody actually say they made a mistake. We don't get that a lot. Second of all, though, there's two things going on here. Not to beat you up or anything, but there were concerns. At least 3 of the people on that road were like, what the hell's going on? And the contractor was really not only not helpful, it was like, it's none of your business. That leads me to the third part, because I'm intimately familiar with that roadway, and it may wind up getting used for a large-scale project in the future. So there was some suspicion about why that was being placed there. But more to the point, that road, although it's listed as a town way, had never been actually maintained and traveled. Some contractor wound up widening it. But there was a potpourri of properties involved there, and it's unclear to me whether you actually needed our approval or their approval, because I suspect, looking at a couple of those houses, that you actually tore up their front lawn and not the town's right away. That it was actually their property. Because at the school, there's a choke point. It's really only about 12 feet wide as a layout. Most of the things that you deal with, it's like, okay, 40-foot layout, and you probably have like 10 feet on either side,
Right.
and you can operate within that. That's not what happened, and some of these people are really frosted. They were told, well, it's none of your business. So
That's unfortunate, to say the least.
yeah, I just wanted you to hear that, because
Yeah.
somewhere or another you need to convey to I think it's like 5 or 6 people on the westerly side of that, where the...
Can you tell me which road we're talking, because there's like...
Yeah, Hall's
3
Path.
Hall's Path, Hall's
Yeah,
Path, okay.
and where the charter school is, there's like 4 houses there, none of whom actually have any intention of signing up with
Do
you.
you
no
have
offense.
those individuals' contact information that you could share?
I could get them, but, and it's pretty clear the first 2 houses, which is where they were coming out saying, what the hell are you doing? That it was their property that got cut up. It wasn't the town's road at all. And it's unclear, it wouldn't have been clear to you, because there was this crazy thing that happened a few years ago where somebody wanted to build some more subdivision properties through an A&R, which is a whole other story. Wound up widening it to create this wider road with a combination of his property and the town's property. I've never seen that happen before. It was make a road.
Right.
But nonetheless, you wouldn't have necessarily seen that, but a survey would have revealed that it wasn't really the town's property you were talking about. So
Well, yeah, I
if you
mean-
could get to them, it would be real helpful.
Absolutely, I
Because
would.
I think an apology is in order to them.
Without a doubt, and I'm here to apologize to you, to the whole board and the town. You know, I live on the Cape. I've been doing this for 45 years. I treat everybody like my neighbor, and I'm always accessible. I'm going to give you my card. If you could forward me any
Yeah,
information on those residents, I'll
Do you-
personally
do
reach
you-
out to them.
Do you want
as
us to
well.
vote to approve that which has already happened?
I would love you to do that, yes.
Okay, don't everybody raise their hand at once.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve post-construction installation of 1 2-inch conduit along Road Cove and Hawks Nest Road and on Route 137 on Hall's Path. That's all I got.
Second.
Okay. So, again, you understand, so
I
by the
totally
way,
get it, yeah.
topography-wise, the name of the road may change, but if we hadn't
We're
dropped,
used to that.
if we hadn't dropped 137 down, Hall's Path would have just kept going onto the other side of the road.
Right.
So,
All right. I will say, Randy, is that what you said, right, Randy?
Correct, yep.
You know, I appreciate you coming in tonight, taking the sword for Verizon, but this isn't as painful as last night's football game.
you needed to say that, didn't you?
True that, but like Mike Vrabel, I'll take responsibility.
There you go. Oh, there you go. All right, well, unlike them, we can actually fix this. The motion is on the floor to posthumously approve that which has happened. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thanks for sticking
Thank you,
around.
Mr. Chair. I'm going to leave you my card.
The meeting did start yesterday, I recognize that.
Thanks, Randy.
Thanks.
Thanks for waiting, too.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, let me read the last contract.
Please.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve a contract with Henry T. Crosby and Son for the design and installation of a Revolutionary War monument project to be installed at Island Pond Cemetery in the amount of $93,950.
Second. We're not going to pat her on the back tonight, but it's a tremendous project, and it's a great idea. So, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Selectmen's reports, I guess. Is that where we're at?
Yeah, we don't have a town administrator report, so.
Well, he's not here.
Well, I know, so, we're down to select.
We could wait a while and see if somebody shows up.
You have to wait.
I got something else.
Yeah, I do too, so go ahead.
All right. I just want to compliment Kara. This was her first project that she walked through the procurement process as a certified MCPPO practitioner. So I want to compliment her for it. It was an excellent job, so thank you, Kara.
Other select person reports?
The only thing I'll remind the board is next Monday's a holiday.
Yes, so we are meeting on Tuesday, not Monday. And there is a prospect, and I just mentioned this to you now, there is a process that a prospect that we may not, given the limited staff and the fact that there's absolutely nobody in that office permanently, and Kevin is kind of floating in and out, that we may need, because of the Tuesday meeting, to ask if we could delay the next meeting for another week so that it gives the staff some time to reset. Just mentioning that now. They may need the bandwidth.
That's fine, as long as well, not as long as, but I just would like assurance that it's not going to affect that warrant article that we just spoke about.
I don't believe so, because it's already in there.
Yep, understood. Thank you.
I took a gamble that we'd all agree to that language. So before we adjourn, I didn't do it at the head of the meeting, but it's a kind of sad occasion. We have what could be considered to be a gift that, unlike other communities where you're going to look at CNN or Fox or get a newspaper that's got 3 articles and then the rest of it is just stuff that comes from on high from other sources like USA Today, we have had the distinct pleasure of having a community newspaper where, whether you like what they're saying in a given week or you don't, they report on everything that's going on, and it's not trivial. I mean, there's town news, and without it, nobody would actually know particularly what's going on. It was a really sad day this past week that Hank Chiora, who was the publisher of the Cape Cod Chronicle, has passed away. I had a brief discussion with Bill. It appears to be a succession plan so that the paper will still exist, but it's nonetheless sad that he was the publisher for many years. And again, love him or hate him for any particular article, the fact that they existed and everybody knows what's happening is a tribute to them. You don't make money doing a weekly newspaper. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, unless everybody wants to stay for a while.
No, I just wanted you to sign those damn papers, but otherwise,
don't.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, here's more. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm
It's a
sorry.
vote.